Hey guys, welcome to the Welding Business Owners Podcast, where our podcasts are late, but our bids are on time. I'm your host, Kevin, with JMW Fabrication. This week, we have an extension of last week with Josh and Nate from the Tradesman Experience. We felt like we didn't have enough time together and to really dive into the deep leadership skills that we really want to get into and a little bit of what Nate does with Battleborn. So the first hour or so, Nate is on there. We talk about his business and how things go with that. He had to jump off and actually interview a couple guys in his shop that day. But then I hop on with just Josh and we dive deep. I mean, like real deep with leadership and growth and everything that goes with that and the running of the business. And I'm telling you guys, I feel like I tell you a lot that there's a lot of value in these. But this one, if you're not ready for it, it'll miss you. And I say that because we dive so deep into the leadership and the growth of what it's like to, not just in a welding business, but just any business, that if you're not like, this isn't like an easy listening that you just turn on the background. You got to be ready for the stuff that Josh brings to this, because I'm telling you, it's going to be game changing for you and your business if you actually get it. So enough with me talking it up. Here's the episode. If you guys like it, give me a thumbs up on the podcast player that you're listening to. Go check out Josh at the Tradesman Experience. Find Nate at Nate Newton 87. And without further ado, here's the episode. All right, so Nate, I want to hear a little bit about your experience of how you met Josh and the coaching that you've gotten with him.
Oh, so this fucking asshole comes into our shop, and I'm business partners with his brother.
Okay.
Right. And so he's with his wife at the time. They're just out here doing a Tough Mudder competition.
Do you remember where we first met?
Yeah, in the shop.
No.
Oh, no, at your bachelor party.
My bachelor party.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Went to Nashville, Tennessee, and just raged around.
I don't even know this dude. I'm just showing up to his bachelor party.
You know what? And it was a blast. It worked out.
It was so much fun, yeah.
But yeah, people were riding mattresses down stairwells and shit in Airbnb. It was a rough night.
I do remember that.
But the second time I ever met him, he comes out to the shop to see what we were doing. We were in this tiny little 1,000 square foot shop over in an industrial park. And Matt's out of town. He's not around. And Josh comes in, and I didn't really know him on a business scale. I just knew him as Matt's brother. And he comes in and just starts asking me all these ludicrous fucking questions about how we run our business and what our operations look like and what our plans for the future are. And I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to make it through today. Like,
who are you?
Yeah. Like, who the fuck are you to come at me with these questions, But ultimately he comes in, he asks me all these questions, and then he just fucking leaves. And I'm just standing in my shop looking around going, dude, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what are we doing here? Like, what does it really mean to run a business? Like, are we doing work for money, or are we owning a business? Because those are two very different things that Josh is very good about delineating those two things. So he asks all these questions, and I'm just standing there with my dick in my hand, just like, dude, like, what are we doing here?
He just rocked our world in 10 minutes.
And then just left.
Mic dropped. Yeah. Just like, peace out. You guys suck.
Good luck.
And then so we got an invite to go to a Tony Robbins event with a good buddy of ours, Thomas Parrish, who owns Thomas Precision Welding. He does a lot of sanitary tubing stuff. And his dad was heavily involved in the Tony Robbins events. So we got the VIP tickets I think we got buy one, get one. So Matt, myself, and Josh, we all went down to LA, went to a Tony Robbins event, dude. And it just boom, fucking kickstarted all this shit. All these ideas are coming in, all this hype around. Okay, we actually are business owners, dude. We get back from, this was 18 hours a day at this Tony Robbins event for 3 days. And then we fast track it home. First thing we do as soon as we get home is we go out to dinner. We sit down with Josh, and all it is just we're talking business the whole fucking time. We're running through all this stuff, and Josh had already owned a business, and whatever had happened with that. And so we start just breaking everything down, and we're like, Matt and I are looking at each other like, dude, we need fucking help, man. We need help. Like we have no idea what we're doing. And Josh was just like, hey, I might be able to help. So we hired him on as a business coach, and we went from doing maybe $250,000 a year to about $2 million a year in 3 to 4 years. Wow. We doubled revenue every year after hiring Josh on as a business coach, because we had no idea what it was to bring on a crew. We had no idea what it was to lead people. We had no idea what operations and systems looked like. You know, all this stuff that you're never taught that as a tradesman. You know, most of us that own these trades companies, we come off of being badasses on the tools to being a complete fuckwit when it comes to running a business. Mm-hmm. You know, and like what Josh has provided for us is he's taken 10 years of just getting kicked in the dick and compressed that into 6 months and gotten like irons out all this shit for you and kind of gives you a path. He ain't going to do the work for you, but he gives you the path to do the things. And if you're smart enough to listen to what he says and jump on board with it, I mean, it's expedited our growth so much. But I mean, to go from $250,000 to 2 million in 3 to 4 years, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
heck yeah.
And so it's, but you know, and the cool part is like, like we'd meet with him, when we were in the coaching originally, we were doing it once a week. And there's a lot to be done in once a week. There's a lot of implementation that's really difficult to get a hold of. But what we realized is that it's better off like every other week, so you can actually get in there and do the things and implement the things. And now we do like once a month, but we're actually bringing Josh back in to we're revamping our whole company. We hit our $2 million wall, and we've had a bunch of problems because, you know, once businesses get to a certain size, that your systems and operations no longer suit your business model anymore. So we're completely stripping everything down to bare bones, and dude, all the way down to our crews too. I think we have one of our OGs left. That's it, you know? And so like we're revamping and it's not that we fired people, it's that everything changed and they didn't like the way that it was anymore. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, greener pastures, man, like go ahead. And so now we have a whole new crew in, we have a whole new, operating system. We're changing up all of our software. We're changing up all of our monetary tracking, all of our job costing. Everything is getting revamped. So Josh is coming in to completely help us rebuild our operating systems. And like it's goddamn is this fucking stressful, but it's necessary. If you want to go from 2 to 5 million, that's a huge jump. And there's a lot more moving parts to go from 2 million to 5 million.
So how many guys do you have?
Depending on how today goes, because we're testing welders, we could be up to 8.
Okay.
So maybe 10. If I see some really good talent, then there's a potential to hire all 4 of the guys that are here. Sweet. And if that's the case, then we'll be up to 10, and it's going to be. You can't manage 10 people. No one owner can effectively lead 10 people. And this was one of those things that Josh really broke down for us. Josh told us, he's like, hey, a high quality leader can effectively lead 4 to 6 people max. So you need to put people into leadership positions like a shop foreman and a field foreman that are going to each take on 4 to 5 guys that they're going to lead those people. And you're leading those 2 people. Mm-hmm. So once you start breaking down these tiers and the operating systems that go along with that, you have to have that in order to get these larger crews. Otherwise, you just got people running around. It's fucking anarchy, right? Like everybody's just doing whatever the fuck they want because nobody's watching anything. Yeah. You know? So that, like, I think that's been our biggest takeaway from the coaching. And like, you know, I was very hesitant to get into coaching because it's like, oh, I fucking don't need no help. I know what I'm doing. I'm a grown ass man. I'll figure it out. Yeah. Maybe over 10 years, you know, how much money are you going to lose doing that? You know?
It's not even lose. It's the potential that you're not making, which I guess technically is losing.
Losing,
you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's awesome. So explain. Like, talk to me about how you were running and what things are you changing to get, you know, from the 250 to 2 mil to the 2 mil to 5 mil. What sort of things, like, what were your growth pain points, and what are you doing about that?
So the biggest growth pain point I think that we saw was transfer of information. That was a huge one, is that we were almost like the gatekeepers of the information when it came to the projects. And we didn't empower our people to make decisions and do things their way. So now moving forward, it's going to be, here's the outcome. Here's the time frame to get it done. I don't care about means and methods. Just go fucking do it. And so that's a huge one. Give them all the information, give them all the tools, capabilities, all the things that they need to get it done. But we don't need to be a fucking part of that. I don't fucking care how you build it. Just build the fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what employee doesn't want that? Our team members want the ability to make decisions and do it their way. And as long as it falls within the time frame, fucking hoorah, man. Good. Let's go. That's how we make money,
Yeah.
And I think, and so our shop foreman, Sam, she's the shit, dude. She's super organized, great chick, bust her ass. She's got her head in it for sure. So her and our guy, Zach, who's out in the field, they both got iPads that we iCloud share all of our steel detailing plan sets. They have access to the email. They're able to access everything they need to access because we have one singular email that everything gets funneled into. And as long as they know who they got to get, who they got to find in order to get the information out of it, then they can do that. But if they don't have to call us 4 or 5 times a day to be like, hey, what's the spec on this? They can just go get it themselves, And I think gatekeeping information was a huge blockade. Like everything had to run through us. But there's no fucking need for that, especially at this level of the game. I understand when you have newbies that are in at like a greenhorn, yeah, you got to stay over the top of them. But at the position we're at right now, we shouldn't be dealing with greenhorns whatsoever.
Yeah.
If we have trainees in, that should be the crew is taking care of those trainees. We'll come out and do some skill training with them, especially on certain processes like dual shield or stick. Like we've been doing this, we were pipeliners for 12 years before we started this thing. So we're really fucking good at what we do as far as the skills are concerned. So we don't mind doing a workshop with the guys, bring them in for an hour and, give them tips and tricks and do all that kind of shit. But as far as the actual teaching them how to work, that's the crew's responsibility now.
So your implementation stuff, it's all just like, do you have a special software that you're using, or you just put it in Microsoft Word and Excel and put it in the cloud? Like, is there anything?
Yeah. So we have our file share with the cloud. We are using Field Pulse right now, which has been a great software. It really has. It is not tailored to what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a service industry type software. So the dispatch, we don't need all the dispatching and all that kind of stuff, but their job costing wasn't a really good fit. So we're moving over to JobTread on January 1st. I had a meeting with them last week about, what the transition was going to look like, what their software is. We're doing a demo on Tuesday, I think, but Josh was kind enough to push us along to JobTread. But one other thing that we really have in our back pocket is we have phenomenal general contractors that we work for that I'll give him a shout out. But my buddy Jeremy McGilvery, I play golf with him, hang out with him and his wife, and I have known him for 5-6 years now, and he has been a tremendous help. And he's like, when you get into these industries, you'll always find that one guy that he's down to help just because you're willing to listen.
Yeah.
And because they'll talk till they're blue in the face to some people and they just don't do shit with it. But dude, this guy's helping us create spreadsheets. He's helping us job cost. He's helping us allocate funds, set up accounts. Like he's like, this is how you want to do it. This is where your money's got to go. This is how you track who's making how much money every day, who's losing you money every day. And it's on a weekly basis. Sorry. The way he runs it's on a weekly basis. The way we do it's on a monthly basis. But regardless, we have people in our back pocket that are like going for broke for us. They believe in us and they want to see us succeed. So, I mean, Josh was the first person to do that for us, was the first person to be like, dude, there's fucking potential here. Like, I want to help out with that. And so it's been this crazy roller coaster ride of like really talking to people that are vetted and know what the fuck they're doing and have seen all the shit already and who have managed to keep up with the times.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just develop a system and go, that's how it's done from now on. That's the way we've always done it. They come out and they're like, no, this is how we're going to evolve to keep up. This is the software we're going to use. We're going to integrate this with our systems. They've got, and I don't want to give away any of their trade secrets. I'm not going to drop names and stuff like that for what they're doing, but They've got their ways that they deal with stuff. And if you're a high quality subcontractor, especially when they're a general, the success of their subs equals their success.
Yeah.
So talking to those people and getting out in front of this stuff, like I get coaching from so many different people that like Josh is the primary. Yeah. They don't know they're coaching me, but yeah. But I mean, like Josh, sitting down with Josh, it's very like, okay, this is the time allocated to deal with coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And with the other guys, it's sitting at a fucking bar having a glass of whiskey and smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
But you just got to be inquisitive all the time. You always got to be asking because everybody's doing shit differently. And you might stumble across something that helps you out along the way, What
were some of the biggest pushbacks you got from the members of your team when you try to switch things up?
Change. It's just change. People are very resistant to change. And I'll put it this way. I have been the problem when it comes to the attitude with the team, that I push hard and I expect a lot and I don't accept excuses.
Mm-hmm.
And the younger guys really don't like that. and it's not like to shit on the whole generation, but fuck, man. When I talk, so Josh has this really cool thing called Walk Me Through Your Plan. So it's one of these things where you sit your team member down and you're walking into a project and you're like, walk me through your plan. How are you going to get from point A to point B? What are all your steps? How are you going to go about constructing this thing? It seems simple, but god damn, do you uncover a lot of dumb shit when you go through that process. And you get to nip it in the bud, right? You get to get out in front of it and go, well, hold on, why are we doing this like this? But when I do these things and I go through and I talk to my team about it, like, walk me through your plan. And then they're like, well, I'm going to do this, but this is probably going to fuck me up. And it's like, you're already looking for the excuse instead of the solution. You're going, oh, I'm going to do it this way, but that's probably going to fuck me up. Well, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. I'll deal with it when I get to it. No, that's not how we're going to go about this. We're going to have a clearly thought out plan, and it doesn't have to be followed to a T, but the fact that you see the problem and you're not making any sort of solution to course correct to get around it and just go, oh, that's a fucking problem. That's going to tie me up.
Yeah.
So it's like they're looking for the excuses right out of the gate. And I don't accept that. And that pissed a lot of our team off. When I walk up and I'm like, I know, Josh does this thing where he's like, I know what happened. I want to know why it happened. And then you tell them that, and then they're like, well, because of this, and that. It's just fucking excuses. And I think that the mindset that we have as we came up from a little bit different of a generation, you didn't have bailouts all the time. There wasn't fucking YouTube. There wasn't all this other shit to tell you the answer. You had to just figure it the fuck out, right? And we developed this mental skill that seems to be lacking in the younger generation.
Problem solving. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to teach that with my son all the time of, I'm like, all right, well, I need you to do this. He's like, why? He's like, why can't you just tell me? I'm like, because when you're 25 years old, I'm not going to be there to tell you to Google for the instruction manual to learn how to unclog this specific toilet. Because like we have a macerated toilet and it was giving us problems, and it's basically his bathroom. I'm like, you need to troubleshoot every single point of what that manual says before I get in there with the rubber gloves and take this apart. So you know what? I'll walk you through. I said, Google the manual. Well, how do I do that? Well, go find the model number of it and then type in SaniFlow model number manual. It's the problem solving that I feel there's so many people who it's just not taught because, I mean, we have so much information. We have more information at our fingertips in our pocket than anybody has ever had in the entire history of the freaking world. And we waste it all the time. And, it's funny. I get a lot of pushback too about asking people how they're going to do things. And, it's not, there's no right or wrong, but it helps me understand where you're going to go with your day or your job, or I think there's a value to talking to people. We have like a 5 or 10 minute meeting in the morning, and I'm instilling in my foreman Dylan, like, you need to lead people to the problems that might happen and then let them figure out the answers before they even leave the shop. That way they can, we actually had to stop earbuds in the shop because I started the trend of I absorb audiobooks and podcasts like nobody's business. 2 years ago, we were making like there was probably 5 of us in the shop. Everybody had earbuds in. The camaraderie went down the tubes. There's a lot of stupid mistakes that were happening that I'm like, I don't know if it's because they don't know or if it was a mistake or they were just distracted by listening to their whatever true crime podcast, So I'm like, I have to put a stop to this, because I felt like everybody was so disconnected. Like nobody would eat lunch with each other. Like one of the things is we don't have a specific lunch time. You take lunch between, I don't know, 12 and 1, whenever it suits your job that you're working on the best. Or if you're just hungry, just go eat, Somebody's in there, you hang out with them. But nobody, like, everybody was eating their cars. Nobody was like hanging out and friendly to each other. I was like, this has to stop. But to go back to your other point of taking responsibility for things, man, I am just, and the younger generation, there's a lot of guys in the older generation who won't take responsibility for things either. When anything happens, it's like, well, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And you know what? I don't care what I will take your answer of, you know what? I just didn't think about it over any excuse that you have to come up with.
Yeah.
Like, years ago, like I heard somebody say, everybody's got an excuse and nobody cares. I don't care what your excuse is. I don't care why you're late. Hey, sorry, I'm running late. If it pertains to you, I'll tell you why I'm running late. But if not, nobody cares that you're right, why you were there late. You're just there late. It is what it is, So,
and you got to make sure it doesn't become a habit also, right? Like, so there has to be some level of accountability. It's like, you got a dude that's a fucking rock star and he's in every day, half an hour before his shift. And he comes in, it gives you a heads up. He's 5 minutes late or whatever. He's late. Okay. It's not a habit, right? But then you get that one motherfucker that likes to strut in 2 minutes before clock in. And it's like, dude, at 7 o'clock, it's tools on and working. It ain't fucking strutting in here and then go take a shit and string your stuff out. And, however they go about it most of the times. I notice the people that we hire that are in their 30s, dude, they're here at half an hour early, making a pot of coffee, fucking getting all their stations prepped, all their stuff's laid out, ready to go. Boom, clock in at 7. I can hear grinders and welders and all that shit running. The guys that are in their 20s, nah, man, that bathroom, we have a single bathroom. That thing is just, I don't even try to go in there for the first 2 hours in the morning, It's just whoever the fuck's in there doing whatever,
Yeah.
And I get it, people got to shit, but goddamn, dude, you don't have your bowels trained to fucking take a shit before you leave your house in the morning?
Yep. Well, we had that problem too, because our start time was, when we went to 4 10-hour days, our start time was 7. And people would roll in 3 a.m., 3 minutes. So back it up. I set the pace on this. I was like, look, I don't care what time you guys get here. Do your 8 hours, do your 10 hours, and we're all good. And that was the normal for our shop for a long time. People would come in, nobody was ever there on time. It was always like they're pulling in at 7, or they're, we used to have an app that, instead of having a time clock, we had an app that you could clock in on your phone because it was just easier. It went to the cloud, no time cards, we're good to go. They would come in, they park, and then they would clock in their vehicle because they're there at 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
So
all of our stuff
7 or like 7:03 or 7:08, but that trickled down throughout the entire rest of what happened in the company. And if they're like, oh well, and then I'm upset why they're not hitting their hours. Well, if I don't hold you accountable for your hours and your start time, how can I hold you accountable over here for these hours? And it's just, like that was a really tough one. So we had to change it in our handbook. Actually, Dylan's job description now is you are there 10 to 15 minutes before start time, whatever start time is. You're there to open the shop, turn on the lights, turn the music on. We have like, God, I don't know how many seat containers. You have to open all the doors, unlock everything before anybody else gets there, because that is his expectation as a foreman, because he sets the tone for everybody else in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that really sets the pace for what the requirements are, right? And once you get to, that, like when we had one or two guys working for us, we let a ton of shit go.
Yep.
And we fucked them up by doing that.
Yep. That's where
by not holding them accountable. They're like, well, why are you fucking up my ass all of a sudden now? And it's like, but that shift from 2 guys to 10 guys, the amount of accountability that has to happen every fucking day with every fucking person is insurmountable. It is so necessary, and you have to hold the line on that. I've sent guys home. They show up fucking 20 minutes late, go home. You're done for the day. I don't care if I fucking need you or not. If you ain't going to show up for your team and be here on time, go the fuck home.
Yep.
On a day without pay, that's a big deal. Like this is why you're here, is to make money. These are the requirements we have for you to be here to make money. This whole, like, you got it, the attaboy thing. It's like, whenever our guys do a great job, I give them an attaboy. I really do. When they do something great, I'm like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. But the necessity for the attaboy for showing up on time, it's like, nah, dude, that's SOP, dude, standard operating procedure. Like, what the fuck do you mean?
We had something like that. What was it? It was we had somebody. Oh, I think when they were hiring, they put on their resume that they were there on time all the time, and I'm like, yeah, like that's not a job skill. That's just what happens when you have a job, but it's, and so I don't want to knock them for putting it on their resume too hard, because nowadays that's actually
it's a fucking skill, dude. It's a fucking skill.
I mean? Like 3 years ago, I was like, why would you even put that on there? That is so dumb. The fact that to say that you're there on time almost all the time. Well, now I see.
I want to talk a little bit about, because since we're on the topic of accountability, and I feel like I actually get to participate now.
Welcome to our podcast, Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Nate,
just so everybody knows, this is our business coach.
Yeah, Nate.
Josh Hewitt.
Nate said a lot of great things about me, and I was just sitting there, just soaking it up,
relishing in it.
Yeah, just trying to be humble. Very difficult.
I'll put your name first in the title. How about
that? Just say it's alphabetical. That way we get away with it. No, a mistake that a lot of people make. I don't want to classify just leaders or managers, but the mistake that we make is we try to give people accountability, and you can't. You cannot give a person accountability. You can give them responsibility, but you cannot give them accountability. That is a self thing. Now, I can hold you accountable, but I can only hold you accountable to the responsibilities that you have if there's clear understanding, expectation, and agreement. So your guys' point of showing up on time, see, that has to begin with the expectation. Now I can hold you accountable to the expectation or to the responsibility, because the conversation is going to navigate differently. You show up late once, you notify me, that's fine. Things are going to happen. But if it's behavioral, then we're going to have a different conversation about it. And the approach to that conversation is, I'm just simply going to say, Kevin, I've noticed that you're late pretty consistent. Help me understand what's going on. Why you're late? Is there something I need to know? Is there something that we need to do different? Do we need to change your start time? Seek to understand. But my ultimate point that I wanted to make when you guys were talking about that is you cannot give your team accountability. And leaders and managers, now I'm going to bring it back to the narrow guide of leadership, is you have to stop trying to do that. just because you are accountable for yourself, your business, and your actions, and you are accountable for their actions because it directly impacts the business and the client, does not mean that you can impose accountability onto somebody else. And I think it's important for people to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I've had two people talk to me about either one guy restructured his business with a business partner. He took on a partner after he started his own business. Why he did that beyond me, I don't know. But but I was like, okay, so I said, he actually I went to college with him. He had no idea I even had a podcast. I was like, look, do you have written job descriptions for each of you? He's like, no, it works great between us. Like I do the bidding and this and that. He does the work, and I'm like, but is it written down? He's like, no, like he knows his role. It goes really well. Like it goes really good right now. I said, when you guys start making money or losing money, somebody's gonna feel some sort of way. Whether it's a good way they feel entitled or they have bad way that somebody else is feeling entitled, they're gonna say, all right, well, I'm not okay with this. So-and-so's got a company car and he's taking his truck up there and I'm paying for that, So I'm like, all right. I said, I've never had a partnership. I don't know what that's like. I almost had a partnership once, but I came to my senses. So I was like, the only thing I can recommend to you is get everything in writing, dude. Get all your job descriptions of what each other does. Who does the paperwork? Who cleans the toilets in your shop? Who sweeps up at the end of the day? Write it all down, because someday somebody's going to feel some sort of way that they have to do something and they thought it was not their responsibility anymore,
Josh, what would you call that?
Which one? Which part?
All of this. What would you call this? You say it all the time on our fucking podcast.
What would I say?
Roles, responsibilities, and expectations. They got to be laid out. They have to be laid out. And it's not just like, hey, what's your responsibility? It's also what's your role and what is the expectation of those roles. So I mean, literally with the guys coming in today, I have printed off our RREs for what the position they're applying for is. So it's like, I'm going to hand it to him and be like, hey, this is what we expect out of you. If this seems, like out of your league, then you should probably just go now before you test. But it's clear and concise roles, responsibilities, and expectations. And you have to revisit that shit all the time. As your business grows and as you expand, your roles and responsibilities are going to change. Even the responsibilities of your team members are going to change. And I fucking hate the word employee. I really do. I use it far too often, but I fucking hate it because we spend so much time, effort, and money cultivating an outstanding culture here. And our guys put in so much fucking work that I don't want to reduce them to the term of employee, right? Because it is a team, and these guys really do look out for each other. There is camaraderie in these trades, You're going to fucking war every day. We might die every day we show up here. It's dangerous. We're all looking out for each other, and that we refuse to just throw warm bodies into the mix. And, working with Josh really opened up our eyes to what leadership and teams and respect looks like from the top down. That you got these guys that want to run these businesses and they demand respect every day, yet they don't do a goddamn thing for any of their people to earn that respect.
Yep.
They just demand it. Well, go fuck yourself, dude. That's not how this works. Respect is earned.
We were Melissa was on the phone yesterday with somebody because we're hiring too. And they said something about, they're like, well, I make $30 an hour. And they had when they restructured the company, they had me out there sandblasting for a couple days. And she her face just like, oh yeah. Well, she's like, well, my husband owns the company and he was out there sandblasting, a couple days ago too. And he said it like it was almost like beneath him.
Everything is everybody's responsibility, man.
Dude, the shit work is everybody's responsibility. And, you know, as like I noticed it as I was doing it, you know, it sucked. It was hot. We were sandblasting a truck frame that was up on jacks, and I'm crawling around in this, you know, we use crushed glass. It's not actually sharp after it's all done, but it gets freaking everywhere. I'm crawling around on my hands and knees, just blasting, and oh gosh, it sucked. But to go out there and do it myself, like I had to, like, it just had to be done, so I did it. But on the back of that, it also showed them, like, all right, he can take the shit job too, and he can go out there and get it done. And so when I asked them to do that, it's not like it's above me, you know what I mean?
Well, Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about leadership equity?
Yeah. How much time do we have? So I will, and I appreciate that segue, but I want to make a quick point on the RREs, because if the individual has a poor attitude and they want to function as an employee, they're going to look at the RREs and use that as well, that's not my job. Right? So
wrong answer.
Because in small business, everyone wears multiple hats. The RREs are laid out there, and even it's kind of awesome, because even the whole RRE process for me has evolved over the last few years, because now it's roles, responsibilities, expectations, minimum skill set requirement, and then compensation brackets and levels. And the compensation level, actually, I'm going to do a whole podcast on that, but obviously we can discuss it. But it's you have to have that outlined. And so if you have someone with a poor attitude, they're going to look at it and go, well, that's not my job, because it's not on the RRE. And Nate's point on leadership equity, see, you have to generate buy-in as a leader. You have to generate buy-in with your team. And Nate, you and I haven't had this conversation yet. About a year or so ago, Tova asked me what I thought was an unanswerable question. She was in here. I was coaching her. And you want to talk about a GSDMF. Like, Tova is a fucking monster. Dude, I love Tova.
Tova's a fucking champ, dude.
She is incredible. And she was sitting across this table.
Who's Tova, by the way?
So
for us who aren't there with you guys.
Yeah, sorry. So her husband, Jeremy, is one of the owners of a large construction company, general contracting company in Reno, Group West Construction. Jeremy's been on the podcast years ago.
Jeremy is ultimately my mentor.
Yeah, it's also Nate's mentor, friends of ours, and I had the privilege of working with Tova on a one-to-one level for a little bit.
Awesome.
And she says, how do you measure leadership? And that question has haunted me for over the past year. I mean, it has haunted me. And I had a discovery of how I think I would answer that question. And how I measure leadership is based on the quality of people that follow you. And so if you are going to have a team, you have to have people that follow you if you want to be a leader, and you have to get their buy-in. And to generate their buy-in, you have to build what we have coined as leadership equity. And equity being the same sense as real estate. You buy a piece of property, you invest in it, you improve it, it increases in value as time goes on, and ultimately you have equity in that piece of real estate. The principle of that definition is the same with your team. You bring someone on your team, you invest in them, you pour into them, you improve them, you lead them, and as you do that, you are building equity. The reason that you need to build equity, other than what we just talked about, is you're going to spend it. When you have to hold people accountable, when you have to have difficult conversations, when you have to make changes in the company, you're going to spend that leadership equity. And it's unfortunate when I see companies spending equity with their team that they don't have. And
that's how you run people off, right?
It is how you run people off. And what happens is you end up in a frustrated relationship because you're driving or pushing them to do one thing. Their performance is not matching that. And the underlying problem is they don't trust you. It's not that they can't do the work. It's not that they can't meet the expectation. It's the fact that you don't have any equity to spend. So when you start operating with your team in a deficit, you're killing the culture. And what you're doing is now you're inviting in toxicity. You're inviting in blame and complain. You're inviting in poor performance. And so for me, to kind of bring this to a full circle and close on this, is I think definitely one of my favorite quotes of all time is by John Maxwell. And he says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And the book's behind me on my shelf here, Kevin. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership was one of the first leadership books I read years and years ago. And I've never forgot that principle. And it's probably why I'm so obsessed. I don't just coach leadership. I'm obsessed with leadership because your company is solely dictated by the quality of leader that you choose to be.
I just to add to that, when a lot of us, when we go into these businesses and we start these things, we want to be a boss. And the last thing you want to be is a fucking boss. You want to be a leader. You should seek to be a leader over a boss every day of the week. And it's easy to fall into, well, they should just do what I say because I pay them. Like that. When the fuck has that ever worked? Ever. Mm-hmm. Other than with hookers, but
other than that,
yeah.
Welcome to Nevada.
Yeah, I know, right? But that's because when we first started bringing people on, Matt and I were, my business partner Matt, we were still on the tools when we started bringing people in. So we had all that equity with the guys. They saw how good we were at what we did. They saw how we operated. They saw the work pace, all of that. And then when you're no longer able to be out there every day pushing with them, your equity comes from a whole other place than where it did before. And it's really hard to find out where that equity comes from when you get to that position.
Man, I don't even know where to go from that because holy cow, like that's like a mic drop right there. You know what I mean? Like yeah. I being a boss is easy. Being a leader, oh my gosh.
Leadership is single-handedly the hardest thing you will ever do. The hardest thing you will ever do is leadership because you're not dealing with like a system of how to lead people. You have to take into effect their thoughts, their feelings, their motivations, their places in life. And there's no broad stroke of how to treat people when it comes to being a leader, especially in the trades. Because, I mean, we all know we work with a rough and tumble bunch of dudes, like fist fights aren't off the table. I'll put it that way, So, and, especially if we were traveling with the pipelines, man, and you're away from your family for 6 to 8 months at a time. You're in a camp job up in northern British Columbia in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like the mentality that there's a lot of depression in the trades as well. And something that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of years has been mental health in the trades because there's a lot of people suffering in these trades. And it's because there's a lack of leadership. There's a lack of understanding. There's a lack of compassion for what people have going on in their lives. And you're just looked at as a fucking tool, like you're expendable. Pretty much. And on that point, there was a stadium being built somewhere in Southern California. The company that generaled that job factored in $1 million every month to compensate for people dying on that site. Somebody died every month on that site. What the fuck? You're just going to factor the money in and just deal with the dead person and just pay their family off and not correct what's going on as far as why these people are getting killed. It's just collateral damage, right?
Wow.
And so when guys are in that environment and you're busting your hump every day, and then Jimmy over there falls off a 6-story scaffold, splatters on the fucking ground, and job site gets shut down for the rest of the day, and you're right back to work the next day like nothing happened. Do you know how much that fucks with people's heads?
Yeah.
And what a lack of leadership at that point. Like, you're literally expendable. And like, that's got to go away. It has to go away. And it's something that I think we're going to see a lot more stuff go to the wayside of smaller businesses. These larger outfits aren't going to be able to retain people because the smaller outfits that run a close, tight-knit 10-man crew, 15-man crew, where you know everybody's name, you see them every day, you have conversations with these people in the break room. People want that work environment. Yeah. They don't want to be a cog in a machine, you know? And I think that the future is beholden to the small business owners.
Absolutely. I think there's also, there are the people who want to work in those big companies just because they just want to do their 8 and go home. Like that's their thing. And it's funny because when you run a business like we do, or you guys do, you get people who seek out small businesses, like who won't go work for places like that because that's just not where they want to go. I think there are we've found ourselves having to innovate in ways to attract the people that we want the cream of the crop of the people who want to work for businesses like us. We don't want to just have, 5, 6, and 7s. We want 7, 8s, and 9s. And we're willing to wait for that. And we're willing to structure our business in order to have those people. One of the things that we do is the 4 10-hour days. People love having 3-day weekends every weekend, or just about every weekend. That's freaking awesome. We still get I've talked to guys, they've tried that and they're like, oh, we can't do that. It doesn't work out. You don't meet the productivity. Maybe that's something in their structure of why they can't, but theoretically it should actually be a little bit more productive because you don't have all the waste of all the miscellaneous crap that goes on during, starting and stopping.
Yeah. Just roll up and string out. I mean, why not get an extra 2 hours out of that if it takes an hour of your time every day? But the reason why people tell you that they can't run a 4 10-hour shift,
they don't have to.
No, because they don't control their schedules. They don't own their own schedules. They let everybody that they work for dictate their schedules. Hey, we don't work Fridays. Well, I'm going to need a guy here on Friday. But, sorry, man, we don't work Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there Monday. You can wait a couple days, but because you don't own your schedule, you aren't able to do that. That's the only reason you can't run a 410 schedule,
It's funny. I actually had to start putting that in our estimates, is that our normal work days are a 7 to 5:30 Monday through Thursday. That's what I quote your job at for those days.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
If you need us there on Fridays, I'm sorry, that's going to be a change order coming down the line. Because I have to pay my guys overtime now, and I didn't consider that. So it takes when you're in an industry that works 5 days a week and you try to work 4, it's hard to stand your ground without and not lose your ass on it, because a lot of times, I've recently done that because a lot of times, we have these bigger contractors, they hold a little bit more weight because their jobs are more valuable. They're like, no, we need you here on Fridays. Well, I've had to suck it up and pay overtime sometimes because that's just the way it is, But now, to stand firm and hold my ground so I don't have to eat that overtime, I put it in my estimates now, Yeah.
But you communicated that with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
They understand. And I mean, the idea of communicating makes a lot of contractors shiver. Because they're like, well, I said it, so therefore I'm beholden to it. And it's like, yeah, motherfucker, that's how it works. Like, that be an adult here, But you tell your clients right out of the gates, they have an expectation set, clear and concise, roles, responsibilities, and expectations. Yeah, we work 410s. And I mean, you're seeing so much of the industry's move to that anyway. It's happening all over the place. Why not work 410s? It's dumb to work 5/8s.
Right.
It really is. It's a waste of everybody's time to work 5/8.
And for small businesses, it's a set, like, it's hard to compete with guys who just want to go out there and get it done and who do kind of chase the money. We usually like weed them out pretty quick. But in order to attract and retain good, talent, we need to be able to innovate on things like that. Like we have really good health insurance for a small company. Like it costs us a lot. Yeah. Like it costs us a lot of money, but we want the guys who want good health insurance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It costs us about $4,000 a month for health insurance. That's a big pill to swallow, when you're a small business, but that equals, and like you said, there's people that chase the dollar, but there's people that chase value. And that's what we're looking for. Value. That's what matters across the board. And I mean, Josh brings it up all the time about like, hey, when you lose a job and somebody's like, oh, it's too expensive, it's because they don't see the value in it. It's not the fucking price. It's not the numbers on the screen. It's the value attached to those numbers. And Josh, I'd really like for you to dig into sales a little bit too, because I think in the trades, we are the worst fucking salesmen on the face of the planet. We are so bad at selling things because we don't know how to convey value to people.
Go ahead. It's not only that. It's not only because a lot of trades you don't have to. To be honest with you, that's why I was bad at sales for a long time, is because when I first started out, I swept up the work that my old boss of like everybody he pissed off. They found out I did my own thing. They're like, wow, like I want to come to you. And it's not like I wasn't stealing his customers. He had already pissed them off. So with the demand that's out there, just calling people back was like a huge thing for us. When I first started out, if I missed a phone call, I called them back. I didn't know what they were, back then my cell phone was my only primary number. I'd say, hey, this is Kevin from JMW Fabrication. I see I missed a phone call from this number. Oh yeah, I was calling you about this, blah, 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 blah. And I swept up a lot of work like that just by going back and actually talking to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you still have to sell when it comes to your pricing. You still have to sell. The work is always there, but you have to sell your pricing. And I think a good kickoff, Josh, what determines the value of something?
People don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel. That's the best rule in business I can teach anybody. And you're talking about, it amazes me when someone says, oh yeah, Kevin started his own business and stole half my clients. I want you to show me how you owned those clients. Show me. Yep. Show me how you own them. Show me how they are promised to you regardless of what the market offers. Show that. That's your ego. That's your ignorance talking. If you think that you own your clients, you're an idiot.
Yeah, didn't we fight a war over that or something?
And, so to kind of dive into sales a little bit, Kevin, I'll ask you a question. What business are you in?
I solve people's problems.
We're in the solutions business.
Yep.
100%. And when I had my HVAC company, I would tell my team probably every week, and I'm not exaggerating, we're not an HVAC company. We're a solutions company that specializes in comfort. Because to get into sales, you have to reshape your lens of business. And you have to reshape the lens of how you look at your own business. I talk a lot about, one of my favorite questions to ask people that own business is, what is the quality of the relationship that you have with your company? Because people treat their businesses like hookers. They treat them like ATM machines. They treat them like a bad girlfriend. They have these really toxic relationships, but it really begins with reshaping your lens of understanding that you are a solutions company, plain and simple. So to begin sales, you have to identify the want or need of the client. And so many people, especially in the skilled trades, they skip that step and they immediately jump into telling the client what they think they need instead of asking the client what they want. So that's step one, is I need to identify your want or need. What are your concerns? What are your pain points? Paint me a picture. Share with me what your expectation is. My job is to ask questions and shut the fuck up and listen, because they'll tell me what they want. And so in the sales process, you have to understand the concept of the 5 C's. And I always use restaurants, but Kevin, think of your favorite restaurant. What is it?
Sunday's Deli.
Okay. Why is it your favorite?
Because, well, we're family friends with them, and they have amazing food, and it's a great value.
Okay. How do you feel when you go in there?
Welcomed.
Okay.
I feel welcomed, and I feel like he actually wants us there.
Mm-hmm. And I like to use the food industry. I love eating out. I like experiencing good restaurants. But if you think about your favorite restaurant, the 5 C's will make sense. The first C is communicate. All right? The second C, I'll go through them real quick. The first C is communicate. The second C is connect. The third C is create. So a lot of businesses that are in business or survive muddle through the first 3 consistently if they have a business. Okay? It's the last 2 that separate successful businesses from mediocre businesses. Because the fourth C is, let's see, I got to go through them in my mind. Communicate, connect, create, commitment. So the fourth C is commitment. And the fifth C is consistency. So when you think about your favorite restaurant, you go in there because if you're lucky, they have great food, but you go there because of how they make you feel. They communicate with you when you walk in. They communicate with you to the table. They communicate with you at the table. The server arrives, and immediately through the communication, they build connection. And then through the connection, they understand that you have a problem and it's their job to solve it. So what do they give you? A fucking menu. So they've created, third C, they've created option-based solutions to solve your problem. What makes your restaurant special is they commit to that every time you're there, and it's consistent every day. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand the 5 C's to really embrace understanding sales, because people don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel. So it's about, and this is one of my favorite terms in sales, it's about value stacking. All right? How you answer the phone or call them back, how you communicate with them up to the process, how you qualify the lead, how you engage with them. If you're working with the public in the residential market specifically, how you park your car is value stacking. How you approach the door, how you knock on the door, how you introduce yourself, how you see, your job as a salesperson. And when I did sales, I would say this. If I were sitting across the table from you, I would tell you, Kevin, my job is not to sell you anything. My job is to give you all the information that you need to make the best decision for you and your family. And that is 1,000% how I would treat that relationship. So you value stack, you identify the want or need, and now your job is to create option-based solutions to solve their problem. Now when you give them option-based solutions to solve their problem, your job is to inform and educate. Inform them of what the solution is and educate them on how it solves their problem. So when you go through the inform and educate process and you get all the way down to the end, we've value stacked, we've identified the want or need, we've went through the 5 C's, we've informed and educate. The price doesn't matter because they trust you. They trust, because see, people buy on emotion. Mm-hmm. We think that they buy on price. And people buy on emotion. So when they feel like you are the best option, the best solution. They don't care about the money. And that is how you create the best experience. It's why this fucking business is called the Tradesman experience. You create the best experience for the client and the price doesn't matter.
Well, and so, I mean, you kind of brought it up a little bit, Kevin, when we started. You're like, oh, well, the work is always out there. All the, like there's a ton of work out there. You're like, what a lot of us look at it like, why do sell? Like, I don't need to sell. Why are the, like, sales don't matter to me. The amount of time, effort, and energy we have spent becoming the best, figuratively at what we do is because we have repeat clients that know that, dude, there's some guys running around out here charging $80 an hour for a rig welder. We charge $125. Do you know why we stay in business? Is because we value stack. We charge more because they know what they're getting when we show up. Mm-hmm. We answer the phone. We show up on time. We carry out exactly what we say we're going to do. And that matters to clients. Mm-hmm. And if you want to keep the best quality clients possible, because that's the thing, if we got shit clients, we drop them. Mm-hmm. We walk away. We fire clients all the time. If they're a problem to work with, we let go of them. But because we sell, we're able to do that. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think that to what Josh said, that applies almost all the time, except for when you have bad clients. When you've got guys who are literally just want the cheapest one out there, so sometimes it's the value that you offer is not in their budget, but you know what? That's okay. Like whether it's not in their budget or they just don't want that, because we get a lot of calls from landlords. They want their fire escape fixed, or they want the cheapest railing that they can get. And we don't even try, we've learned to not even try to sell them because we are not the best person for them. And to your point, how you made them feel. You know what we do? We have a list of people who are cheaper than us and still give good service. Mm-hmm. And we direct them to those other people. Say, hey, we're probably not going to be the best fit for you. Call these guys.
All that does is boost your company, right?
Absolutely.
You're still solving problems.
Yes, you're still serving the client.
Exactly. Yeah. You're still serving them even without rendering your service to them.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, gentlemen, but it's about time for I'm going to have to jump off, but you guys can. Josh, you're going to probably keep him tied up for the next 4 fucking hours. So
you've got me primed. I'm ready to go.
We got him going. Got him going.
I'm ready to go now.
I already sucked your dick enough, Josh. You can do it on your own
now. Good seeing you, brother.
All right.
See you, Nate.
Enjoy the rest of the episode, guys. Thank you.
See you, buddy.
Yeah, Nate is implementing one of the processes that I teach companies and work with companies in the interview. I talk a lot about recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and onboarding. And I look at a 3-step hire process. And the first part of that is a simple conversation. It's going to be 45 minutes or less most of the time. And I tell people, I said, don't even look at the resume on the first interview. Don't even bring it out. Just you're there to answer one question. Would I work with this person? You need to let your intuition do its work. Feel them out. Ask them questions. See how they behave. The second interview is where you bring the resume out and you figure out, okay, do they have the skill set, the mindset, and the requirements to fill the position that we are currently hiring for? And if that works, then you put them through a performance test that's relevant to the position. So Nate's performance testing today for interviewees. So that's why he had to get off here.
So let's back that up and double down on that a little bit. So what kind of questions do you suggest people talk about with the person if they don't even, well, I guess maybe I should put it this way. So you suggest not even looking at their resume at all and just talking to them?
I don't bring their resume out in the first interview. No.
Okay.
So this was a system that I learned. I'll give your listeners a little bit of history on me now.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the HVAC industry for about 18 years, and I had my own business for the last 5 of those years. And in 2012, I began this journey of personal development, studying leadership, studying business. And that pivotal moment in my life is what has led to you and I having a conversation today. Because I made a promise to myself way back then, because I became, obsessed isn't even the right word. When I was introduced to the idea that I was in control of my performance, of my behavior, of my outcome, of my success, of my failure, if let's see, so I'm 42. So if 30-year-old Josh walked in here, I probably wouldn't recognize him. And so that's how I've, just committed. But I made myself this promise that I would learn something on purpose every day for at least 15 minutes. And I've never broke that promise to myself in over 10 years. And that, again, that journey has led you and I to having this conversation. So back to the interview process with my HVAC company, I learned through a lot of expensive mistakes that I needed to change how I interviewed people. Because when trades companies interview, they look for 2 things. Normally, okay? They look at the skill and they look for themselves in the other person. They want the other person to be able to do what they do. Mm-hmm. So this is a word I'll use more than once, I'm sure, in our conversation. So the interviews are very singular. It's all skill set. And when I started understanding the importance of a culture, we hired, one of our core values, we hired and fired on attitude. That's it. Some of my best technicians, some of my best performers in my company had 0 HVAC experience until they come to work for me. And they were monsters, dude. Monsters. It was amazing to see, to watch people develop.
Yeah. So
when I would perform the interview, I just wanted to get a read on them. I told them, I really kind of talked about the company in the first interview. And I would maybe ask them what they're looking for, a little bit about their experience, but not skill set, right? If we were in an interview, one of the questions I might ask you is, Kevin, what are you looking for in a company? Right? Mm-hmm. Not in the job that you do, but what are you looking for in a company? And I would navigate those conversations, and every single time in the middle of that first interview, I would get very stoic faced, and I would lean forward and I would say, Kevin, here's something I need you to understand about our business. We're very protective of our culture. Personal growth is a requirement here. We have team meetings every week. If you happen to fool me and I hire you and then the team doesn't want you here, I'll fire you immediately just on that principle. If that doesn't sound like the kind of place that you want to work, we can stop this interview right now. The best people that I hired, Kevin, when I would, because there was a level of like serious and emotional intensity when I would deliver that. They would fucking light up. They would be like, oh my. And I remember one of my favorite interviews, Marcus, who's just one of the most amazing people on the planet. He went, wow. Audibly. I don't even think he knew he said it. And if they would agree, then I would lean back in my chair. We would finish our conversation, and then I would schedule them for a second interview where we would discuss skill set requirements. We would discuss compensations, the RREs. We would look at the resume, and we would really now try to determine if there was alignment, if we were both going to be able to fulfill this agreement that we were discussing. And then if that was the case, we would look at performance testing. After I had built my company up, because at the largest I had 17 people in my company, which was, we didn't have the right systems in place and we didn't have the right revenue, and it was a really expensive learning experience. But when I would onboard someone, I would send them with a different technician each week for 3 weeks. You don't even need your tool bag, right? You're riding shotgun for 3 weeks. And then for the 4th week, either me or your team leader is going to ride with you in your vehicle. And that's how we would conclude the onboarding. And it was this kind of cultural immersion, if you will, into the business, but into the concept of what we are trying to develop. No, this is no shit. I had a guy quit in 4 hours. Good. Because that the point of all of this process and the interview and the performance testing and the onboarding is to compress that outcome, right? And I sent him, like, day one, I sent him with my top tech, and I'm like, all right. And when I sent somebody, like, my techs knew what their job was. Their job was to press, right? It was we're going to add some pressure, make them do the work, right? Like, and he called me at lunchtime. He's like, hey man, so-and-so quit. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, I just dropped him off the shop. And he was so nonchalant about it, right? It was almost like he had expected this and I had missed something. And I said, Chad, I don't have time for this right now. I'm fucking busy. What is going on? He said, no, I swear. I took him back to the shop. He got in his car and he left. And so that's my fastest turnaround on an onboard.
So, all right, I want to press on that. What do you think you missed when, like, in that guy? Where do you think you went wrong in the interview process with him? Obviously, this was a miss on your part.
Yes,
on
definitely.
This.
It was a definite miss. That particular case, we were distracted by another potential opportunity. So this gentleman owned. He was a single owner operator. I think maybe he had a small team. He was an electrician, and he wanted to get in the HVAC industry. So unfortunately, our interviews turned into business negotiations on how we could partner in the future and branch together. And we became distracted by that. And it didn't allow me to see what I should have been focusing on, which was fulfilling the role and how we worked. And I think that's something that's really interesting is, we've kind of coined the phrase the GSDMF, and that's really what our culture was at that time. I mean, if you weren't a get shit done motherfucker, you weren't going to make it. And not from a tyrannical standpoint, I obviously I'm an advocate of leadership, but in that conversation, I realized, in my leadership immaturity and in my business immaturity, that I had gotten distracted by the idea of an opportunity. And then I brought this guy on board and he bailed in 4 hours. So yeah, it was definitely my fault. 100% my fault.
Okay. Yeah. I pulled you off topic there.
No, I'm not even sure where I was going. I mean, we were talking about,
so
go ahead.
I want to back it up a little bit to what you said is, when you realized that it was all on you and you doubled down and got shit done. Did you have any fear or hesitation or, like not dread, but like, what was the weight of that for you? Was that was the weight of that motivating for you, or was the weight of that, like sink or swim? Like, oh, I got to get this done, or we're gonna drown here.
I was anticipating this question. I was. Kevin, I think you're a really good interviewer. You know, I know this is our second time being on the mics together back to back, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation on the podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation in Chicago. And as I was driving to the studio this morning, this was a question I anticipated, and I can't answer it correctly if I don't give you a little bit of history.
Go for it.
I have been in the skilled trades my entire life, and I don't mean that I started into construction in my teens. I mean, I was a toddler. I've never done anything else. I don't know anything else. I swung a hammer for the first time when I was like 2 or 3 years old. And coming up through the trades, see, I had the privilege of being raised by the graybeards, you know, of the real, like, shit that an HR manager would kill themselves over today. You know, I grew up like the agoge style, you know, of the trades, and you either get you get hardened the fuck up or you get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of raised by wolves in the trades from a very, very young age. And throughout my teens and then throughout in college, I ended up going to vocational school for heating and air conditioning. And got my first job, was there for 4 years, got my second job, and I kept moving. And I couldn't, through my entire working life, I could not figure out what was missing. I knew something was, I could feel it in my gut. I could tell that this just didn't feel right. And I had an opportunity to become a territory manager for a geothermal company. I was very familiar with the product as a technician. And the gentleman that was the TM at the time was kind enough to get me an interview. He didn't give me a promise. He didn't give me the job. He was kind enough to get me an interview, and my attitude ended up landing me the position. And because I wanted it so fucking bad, because how I defined success back then was money. I mean, you just made more money. And as a starving technician in the middle low income parts of the Midwest, you didn't make a lot of money as a residential HVAC tech. You just, I mean, I'm, you know, back in the day, I'm talking about a little bit, journeyman residential techs made $16 an hour, you know, journeyman. And so I didn't have that access to a lot of money at the time, which I come to find out was also my fault. But I had an opportunity to get a job where I was going to be making between $80,000 and $100,000 a year. And I went after it. I spent 18 months in that job, and I wanted to kill myself because contractors are the biggest pain in the ass on the planet. But so the reason I'm building up to this to answer your question is, you know, was that motivating for me? Was it a lot of weight? When I had that job, and I had about 60 contractors that I called on, 3 of them knew how to run a business. Only 3. Every other contractor had no concept of business, which I was figuring out at the time. They had no concept of leadership, which I didn't know how to define at the time. And all they did was blame and complain, and they wanted somebody else to fix their problem. The biggest problem in your business is you. But the greatest solution in your business is also you. I left that job after 18 months, and that's when I started my first company. With all of that information that lifelong journey up to that point of being in the trades, I discovered through podcasts, and I'm talking back in 2012. You know, that's when I discovered podcasts. I learned through that the thing that I always felt was missing was leadership. So I became obsessed with becoming someone that I had never seen before. I had never worked for a good leader. I didn't have good leadership growing up. I had good people growing up, but there was no good leadership. And once I discovered that piece of that recipe, Kevin, it changed my life. So I was so powerfully motivated to be a leader and to be the best leader. So for me, it was never the weight of being leadership. It was the power and motivation of becoming a better leader.
What sort of so you said you discovered podcasts back in 2012. What are some of the things that you listened to that got you started on this journey to become the leader that you haven't seen before?
Entree Leadership. It's
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey.
Yep. He does run an extraordinary business,
man. Yep.
Like the way that he does it. I've listened to that book three times.
Mm-hmm.
It's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. And so back then, are you familiar with Chris Hogan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Chris is a friend of mine.
Okay.
And when I got introduced to Dave Ramsey, and for your listeners, I don't give a fuck what your thoughts or beliefs are about his financial teachings. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
The information that was present and available at that time was exactly what I needed. It was the perfect recipe for me. It was like the universe was said, here's this thing. And I consumed it on a psychotic level. But the brilliant thing that it did, though, and this is where I will always give Entree Leadership credit for starting me on this path, always. And I will always give Chris Hogan credit for impacting me on starting this journey. That man just had so much influence on me in the relationship that I got to build with him over those few years. And like I said, now we're friends. Actually the last time I was in Tennessee, I was at his house, and we were just hanging out, shooting the shit, and just what a fucking solid dude, But the Entree Leadership podcast, what it did and what's so brilliant about them is it introduced me to all of these other leaders. John Maxwell, as I mentioned earlier, John Maxwell was one of the first. The very first person I was introduced to was Simon Sinek. And he was episode 1 of Entree Leadership, Simon Sinek. I've seen Simon Sinek live in person. I've seen John Maxwell. I've seen I'm not going to be an idiot and name drop and be like, look at all these people. Mm-hmm. They are more brilliant in person than they are in their books. And that's a high standard for me. And that expectation was phenomenal. So it introduced me to all of these other people that taught leadership and their leadership styles. When you look at Simon Sinek and you look at Jocko Willink, completely different styles, but the principles are very similar, right? And so when I coach people, I don't give them a style. I don't try to change their style. I give them the principles that they need to be a good leader. And you have to adapt your style to be that better version. And I think there's a great marriage of those things. Once you, and here's another point, and this was another pivotal moment on my journey, and this is something that I think I really want people to understand, is you have to reach a point of humility to become a great leader. Because so many business owners and so many people are so singular. You think about how most people run their business. It's very singular at what they do. Actually, most people's lives, I believe, are so singular, right? Mm-hmm. They're a phenomenal welder, but they're a piece of shit husband. They're a good bank manager, but they're a toxic father,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're so singular, and their identity is so wrapped up in this one thing that they excuse themselves and they justify themselves for poor behavior in all of these other areas of life. For me, leadership encompasses all the areas of your life. It's not just about getting people to do the things that you need them to do at work to generate a result or a product. Leadership is about developing you and influencing other people to become better and produce that thing. I don't know how deep you want to go on this, Kevin. Like,
no,
dude, this,
it's funny because like I like I'm having I'm tracking with you the entire way, and I'm just like I feel like I'm learning from you right now more than anything else. Like I don't even have questions. Like just keep bringing it comment. Like holy moly.
So, sometimes I just I get so fired up at talking and then I just get too lazy to stop. So
no, it's so like you said that Chris Hogan was one of your like so it's funny because one of my questions that I would have is, what could you teach people that you wouldn't find in a business book? But I feel like I already know the question to that. But I'm interested to hear what you would.
Yeah, it really kind of goes back to the concept of being singular. And because you're in the welding industry, so I'll use it as an example. Matt and Nate did it. Nate kind of talked about it before, and they had their business for 3 years before I started working with them. And it goes back to the singular identity, okay? And if you're a really good welder, you think that you can do that and make money and own a business doing it. If you're really good at sales, you think you can do this. What I would tell people is, and this is something that I do tell people, is I already know that your business is a direct reflection of you. So what you're really good at, your business is good at. And what you suck at, your business sucks at. So if you're really good at welding, you have a really good welding company, but you don't have a business or culture. So to answer your question, the best thing that you can do is develop yourself. And this is a conversation my girlfriend Katie and I have. We talk about this all the time. And it's amazing when you have hard conversations how easy it is. Okay?
It brings it to light, yeah.
So what I told, what we talked about, I don't want to say like this is what I told her. What we discussed, it applies to business, it applies to relationships. And I told her, I said, look, the greatest gift I can ever give you is the best version of me. And people will be like, yeah, in a relationship, that makes sense. It's the same thing in business, man. The best thing that I ever did for my team was give them the best version of me at that time, was grow and develop myself. Because when I did that, guess what they did? They give the client the best version of themselves. And then we created the best experience for the client. See, we bought a company, and my business is a tremendous success and tragic failure story. But we did a purchase of assets of a company that was doing $250,000 to $300,000 a year. And in 3 years, we were doing almost $2.5 million. In residential, small farm mining towns in the Midwest. Our office was in a town of 5,500 people. And we had about a 40-mile service radius. But the only reason we were able to do that is because we went out and created the best experience for the client. And the only reason we were able to do that is because we built the best culture. And the only reason we were able to do that is because I made a decision to become the best leader.
What are some of the things that you would So to the guy who's listening to this and is like, you know what, this speaks to me. I need to change. I need it, it falls on me and I need to change. What would be your best advice for taking that first step? And what do you see most common when people come to you for coaching and they have to start somewhere?
The first thing I tell people is leave your ego at the door. Because if we're working together, I'm going to say things to you that no one has ever said to you before. And the only reason I know that is because they've told me that. So I'm going to tell you things that no one has ever told you before. Leave your ego at the door. That is step one. You cannot progress if your ego is driving. Not possible. Because it goes back to being singular. Well, I'm the best fucking pipeline welder around. No one cares. No one gives a shit, especially your team. Your clients don't give a shit. They don't care how good you are. They just want to know how good you are at solving their problem. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you have to do is you have to leave your ego at the door. And when you shed that ego and you really embrace humility and you understand, you have to start looking at the things that you're doing right and the things that you're doing wrong. And I think this is something that a lot of people, the mistake that they make, Kevin, is they want to focus on the things that they're doing wrong. You don't have to beat yourself up, okay? If you have enough humility to accept the fact and go, you know what? I am really, really bad at communication. Okay, we can start there. But if you said, my team is really bad at listening to me, that's an ego problem, right? Both of those things generate the same result, but one is introspective and one is extrospective. So you really have to come into to play with understanding. And honestly, I'll tell you one of the best things you can do. Go to 123.com. 123test, the numbers. I'm not affiliated with this website. It's a free tool that I use. Go to 123test.com and take a personality test. You want to talk about a high definition mirror. because a personality test doesn't only tell you what your personality is, it tells you why your personality is, and it tells you how to navigate your personality when communicating with other personalities. You want to dive into this concept of learning and growing yourself, go take a personality test. And then after you read it, let whoever is closest to you in your life, whether it's a best friend or a significant other, let them read it. And they're going to go, holy shit.
That's you.
that is you to a T. And they're going to be like, what do you mean? I do this? Like, yeah, you're doing it right now. You know?
See, it says it right here.
So leadership is, again, whether you are a parent, a spouse, a business owner, a business leader, a team leader, a foreman, a gym coach, a teacher, it doesn't matter to me. Leadership is leadership. And the only way that you can do that is if you become extremely introspective. The second part then, we touched on earlier, is accountability. And this is where people start, they don't like the taste. They don't like the taste of accountability. It's really bitter going down, But I will tell you the first book that I ever read relative to business was QBQ by John G. Miller. It takes like an hour to read. It's a super short book. Fucking wrecked my life. That book wrecked my life because when I got to the end of that hour read, I recognized what an asshole I was. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that
I haven't read the book, but I'm going to check it out now.
I literally contacted people from my past and apologized to them after I read that book. And that book was so profound to me that when you onboarded in my company, it was a requirement. You had to read that book in the first 30 days you were there. It was a requirement. Now, so for example, one of the things that we did one night is like 6 of us stayed after work one night and I played the audiobook and we all listened to it together for an hour. But that's how profound that book was. And I mentioned Marcus earlier, after he read that book and he goes, man, I've got some apologies to make. So humility, accountability, right? So humility, introspection, do the personality test. And then, man, start on this path of accountability. And you have to recognize, so I'm going to take this to a business standpoint. Everything in your business is your fault.
Yep.
Everything.
Extreme ownership. That's Jocko.
Yes. Which I've read multiple times as well. And if you can't accept that, then we have to go back to step 1 and talk about humility. Okay? Because everything that goes wrong in your business is your fault. I don't care who made the mistake. It is your fault. If a client doesn't pay you, it's your fault. Okay? Because there was not clear expectation set. There was not a clear agreement set. You didn't walk the client through the process and through the journey. You just went in, give them a price, did the work, and said, okay, I need paid. And they're pissed, not because you completed the project wrong, but because you killed their rose bush in the process. Right? And there's emotional currency that they have and that they're expected due. That's your fault.
Yeah.
That's your business. So again, humility, introspection, until you can get completely on board with understanding accountability, you cannot grow as a leader.
So once you, as a leader, accept accountability for everything, how do you implement accountability with your team? And what have you seen issues with that in your coaching?
We discussed leadership equity a little bit in the beginning. And every single time that a person takes accountability, it increases leadership equity. Because you show me a manager that doesn't take accountability, I'll show you a team of people that don't trust him. Okay? And they're going to treat that individual as such.
Yeah.
Because managers manipulate. And if you look at manipulation and you look at influence, you have to understand the difference to fully understand leadership. See, manipulation is when I influence or convince you to do something to benefit me. Influence is when I convince you to do something that betters you and everyone else, regardless if it benefits me. So you show me a person that's going to stand up and take accountability, then you'll see a team that starts to gain trust, and you will start building that leadership equity.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. All I'm thinking about is how I just is how I need to do this more in my business. Like I'm taking everything and I'm like, shoot, I need to do that now. Yeah, I need to do that. It's like I'm sure everybody listening, they're having an epiphany. Like if you're really getting into this, they're having an epiphany moment and things are popping up in their head to, oh, you know what? that's how that can apply here. That's how that can apply here. And it's happening to me right now.
Me too.
Right?
Me too.
Okay.
You know, because you have to give yourself permission to fail. You have to give yourself permission to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I never want to be on this microphone and sound like I am the epitome of these things. Man, I learn every day. I learned something that I found so amazing from our last conversation that I had never put together before. I had the dots. See, I have this thing I tell people, you have to collect the dots before you connect the dots. And I had not connected these dots, and you connected them for me, Kevin. We were talking about your system implementation with your team, the transfer of information, the 1 through 4 phases, of completion and quality and so on. And when we started discussing the hours, the projected hours, the quoted hours that you have, you said, I need them to see that because I want them to see what success looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, that hit me like a truck because I was like, in my mind, immediately, I'm like, that's the piece I've been missing. That's the piece that helps people understand why. Right? And when you said that, I mean, the inside of my mind looked like a fucking Rubik's Cube, and it's like, oh shit, we're getting the colors lined up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was so fucking valuable. So I don't get on here and talk to people, and I don't coach people in a way. See, I think here's coaches and leaders make this mistake. Okay? Coaches especially, but coaches and leaders make this mistake. They don't meet people on their level. Mm. See, when I start working with someone, I have to meet them on their level, wherever that is. As a leader, you have to do the same thing with your team. You have to meet them on their level. If all you're going to do is stand at the top and yell at people to hurry up and climb and come on, they just don't trust you. Man, you've got to meet people on their level. You've got to build that connection, and then you've got to say, okay, follow me. And you help elevate them to that top. Coaches do the same thing. So what I tell people, I said, look, I don't want you to look at this as a coach-player relationship. I want you to think of me as somebody on your team. I'm on your team. And I said, so however I can work with you and we can work together, I'm going to help you have hard conversations. I'm going to help you make hard decisions. I had a guy call me last week just to vent. And he texted me. He said, you got time for a call? I called him, and he goes, I need somebody to vent to. He goes, I'm on a ledge right now. And he goes, I said, okay, what do you got? And sometimes my job as a coach isn't to say anything at all. It's not to teach you. It's not to, enlighten you with this fortune cookie advice. It's not. Sometimes my job is just to listen. Sometimes my job is to, what I mentioned earlier, is to tell you something that no one's ever told you before. Mm-hmm. And I've had conversations with people where even I'm thinking, this will probably be the last time I see them, because they don't like the shit sandwich that I'm feeding them.
Yeah.
Because it's full of truth. The testament to the people that I work with, just to tell you the quality that they are, is every single time that has happened, Kevin, they have come back to the next meeting and they have said something similar to, man, I thought a lot about what you said last week, and it kind of changed my life. It's really impacted on how I look at things. Some of the guys get into this rabbit hole of self-discovery, And it's interesting because what I explained to people too, I said, growth is on the other side of discovery. And that's why I went back to earlier, we were talking about introspection and accountability and learning yourself. You can't skip the pond of discovery and jump right into growth. Okay? Growth is on the other side of discovery. So you have, I don't know, you just have to be, man, again, just so fucking humble, you know? Be obsessed with learning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, be obsessed with asking yourself the question, how can I do this better? How can I be better? Not what did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
People get so focused on the negative. They get so focused on the negative. Man, this is what I did wrong. I shouldn't have said that. Man, fuck your shouldn't have, couldn't have, wouldn't have. You know? Just ask yourself, all right, what is it that now that I've done that, what is it that I can do better?
Yeah. So in your discovery, you can't jump over the pond of discovery before you get to the pond of growth. What was the hardest thing for you to learn when you were in your HVAC business and you discovered that you were?
It's easy. I can already tell you that is not about me.
Okay.
It's not about me.
Mm.
And the hardest transition that I have had to make on this journey, and one that really kind of boosted my leadership maturity, it boosted my emotional maturity, was I had to stop thriving for significance. Significance is so limiting and so toxic. It's a really toxic trait.
So are you saying that like you were looking for your value and you were getting your self-value from how the business was going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even deeper than that, right? Even, you know, if my team would do something great, I wanted it to be my victory. You know,
Okay.
if something went right in my relationship, I wanted it to be my victory. I was very self-centered, very, very self-focused. And so that was the hardest thing for me, was giving up significance for growth. But I didn't understand significance until I went through the process of discovery. So with my HVAC company, the more I recognized that it was not about me, the better my team performed. And I got to a point where it was so much not about me that they didn't give a shit if I was there or not. Right?
Good.
Oh, you know, one of the greatest compliments that my team had ever given me, and I remember that I wanted to take a vacation, right? So, small business owner, right? Vacation. What is that?
Right.
But you know, we had systems, we had operating procedures. I had great people in the right places. And Mama D, and anyone, if you've ever listened to my podcast, Mama D she's like a mythical creature almost, you know, like a mythical goddess. I mean, she was so fucking amazing at so many things. I remember getting ready to leave for vacation, and Mama D is from New Jersey, you know, originally. Yeah. She was in Pennsylvania for a long time, moved to the Midwest where her husband's from. And we'd always give her shit. You guys want some coffee? I'm like, I don't know what that is, but okay, you know, kind of thing. But I remember her, you know, telling me when I was going on vacation, and she said, don't you call here. Don't you call any of my guys. If we need something, I'll call you. And she wouldn't let the team call me. You know, she'd be like, don't text him. Don't call him. And she'd tell me, say, we got it. Leave us alone. Go to. And what a tremendous compliment, right? If leaders understood that one of their jobs is to work themselves out of a job, their fucking business would explode. because they are the limiting factor.
Yeah.
And so when I had a team that had so much ownership, and it was, it was the culture, but they had so much ownership, they were like, yeah, I don't need you here. It's like, oh. And you got to make sure your ego is not like, what the fuck you mean you don't need me here, So the more I understood that it wasn't about me, and another great example, because with the business, I made the transition of working in the business to working on the business, right? I was in a service truck. When we started the company, I was in a service truck fucking 7 days a week. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I'm talking 12 to 18 hours a day. And then I think we had two other guys that would take call. And if they were on call, I was tech support. So it was true chaos. I mean, it was detrimental to my health. It was detrimental to my relationship at the time. But I was fucking all in. I'm a die on the battlefield kind of guy. Like if I'm gonna do it, I'll die doing it if that's what it takes, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I had spent the first few years kind of juggling this poor act of working in the business and on the business. And I realized that, okay, I need to be on the business because I'm not serving my team well. I'm not serving our clients well. So I announced it to the team in one of our team meetings. I'm a huge fucking advocate for team meetings. I announced it to our team meeting. I said, okay, I'm going to work on getting out of the service truck, but here's why. And here's how it's going to benefit you. And here's my plan to do it. And everybody was like, fuck yeah. Like, yes, please, because it checks so many boxes. So we went through this 3-month transition period focused on me getting out of the van and in working on the business and serving them. And back to my point of, it wasn't about me. Here's what I told my team. And this is the job of a leader. And I would tell my team, and I would say, listen, the clients, they're not my clients. They're your clients. My responsibility is to serve you. Your responsibility is to serve the client. Mm-hmm. We do that, we'll win. And I'm not kidding, Kevin. Rarely did I get to interact with one of our clients. Rarely, because I didn't run sales most of the time. My business partner at the time, he ran sales. We had another person that ran sales full time. I had an install coordinator. I had 2 EFIs, which I call them EFIs. It stands for Executor of First Impressions. Who's answering the phone? Who's dispatching? Who's doing the coordination? So I had 2 service coordinators. We had all of these operating systems and people in place, and I didn't get to see my clients unless there was something really, something had really happened and was wrong. Which are some of them are really bad stories, but for the most part, it was just me getting involved with the technician to help solve these problems to serve our client. But when I started focusing my efforts on serving my team, it increased the quality of experience that they created for their clients. And I'll tell you a story to emphasize that. One of my favorite people on the planet is my buddy's dad. His name's Carl. And I had taken care of, their family's furnace and air conditioner for 15 years at this point. They didn't trust it. They didn't want anybody else out there. Mm-hmm. I called Carl and I said, hey, I'm going to send. I said I really handpicked it. I said, but I'm going to send one of my techs out. I said I'm not doing maintenance and service anymore. I said I'm going to send one of my techs out to take care of you. Okay, and Carl salted the earth, but so I sent Marcus. After Marcus leaves, I received 2 phone calls. The first phone call was from Marcus, and Marcus said, hey, just want you to know, Carl's my client now. He don't even want you back out there. I'm like, yeah. The second phone call I got was from Carl himself. And he goes, hey, he said, I just wanted to call you about Marcus. I said, yeah. He said, he's the only tech that I want. Anything for you, Carl. Because, as a leader, and I'll bring this back into, kind of big picture business, you have to empower your team. Mistakes that managers make is they give people responsibility and no authority. That's not empowering your team. That's micromanaging. When you empower your team and they believe in you and they believe in the thing that you're doing, they'll probably do it better than you. And I had a great track record as a service technician. I had a great reputation, built a good reputation. But to scale that, right, they took the principles that I had given them and shown them as a leader and scaled it. And we, almost 10x. We 8x'd this business in 3 years by empowering my team to make decisions and all fighting for the same purpose, the same mission. Create the best experience for the client. And we had a lot of operating systems within our company, right? An example for my technicians, I didn't need you to call me to get permission to make a $200 fix to make a client happy, right? So my technicians were empowered they had like a $250 authority. Look, if you can fix it for $250 or less, just fix it. I don't even need to know about it right now until after it's done. You don't need my permission.
Yeah.
Fix it. Serve the client. I don't want you to put the client on hold so you can go talk to your manager to get an answer that's going to force you to come back and negotiate. Fuck that. Take care of the client and do it right now. Right now. And it was amazing because the clients were like, oh, don't you have to call? No. My coordinators, my EFIs, they had a $500 authority. Okay, if it's over $250 and it's under $500, call Mama D. Talk to her about what's going on. You get authority from Mama D. If it's over $500, I probably need to know what's going on. I probably need to get involved. Empower them to make decisions. Yes, we're going to have a conversation afterwards, right? When I look at the invoice and go, hey, how come we had to give Kevin a $300 motor? I know that it was approved, correctly. I just need to know why. Because I need to know, all right, what can we do differently to prevent this from happening again? What was the mistake? Why did this happen? Was it training? Was it negligence? Was it a mistake? Right? Let's figure out why it happened. Let's have that conversation. And then we're going to share that with the team. Okay. We're going to cross-pollinate so everybody knows for next time. And I don't have to solve the same problem twice with two different people. People create fucking they pit people, they cross-contaminate instead of cross-pollinate. And that's not, you can't build a culture that way. But on the other side, with accountability, my team also understood the rules of mistakes. And this is exactly how I delivered it to them, Kevin. I would say, all right, if you make a mistake, own it. Just own it. Don't hide it. Don't lie about it. Just own it. Because I know you are not going to make more mistakes than I've made doing this. So if you make a mistake, own it so we can all learn about it and we can fix it. If you make the same mistake twice, I will eat your fucking face. And that was the rule.
Yeah.
That was it. I give them permission to fail. I give them permission to make a mistake, but I also empower them to solve it. And it's unbelievable what people will do when they trust you as a leader. It's unbelievable. So, another rant there, Kevin. Good.
I love it. I love it. No.
I wouldn't be so passionate and disciplined about these things if I didn't know how it has improved my life, my relationships, my physical health, my business success and failures. Everything that I have done has come down to the one single point of me making a decision to become better.
Which is a perfect segue into my next question. I asked this out of personal experience because I'm one to absorb so much information that is relevant to what I have to do. But implementing it in my business seems like such an insurmountable task. On Saturday and Sunday, I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to make this up and we're going to follow this. And then Monday comes and you get punched in the face. And then Tuesday comes, and you take that and you just move it to Tuesday. You know what? I'm going to be in the office Tuesday. I'm going to get that done. And then everybody and their mother needs a railing done, or you have quotes that you didn't do on Monday and you got to finish those up. What are some of the ways that have helped you and you see some of your clients do to take the ideas that we hear on this podcast, your podcast, audiobooks, other podcasts, whatever? How do you, coming from a guy who perpetually does this, how do you implement those things and keep yourself on track with getting that done?
I really like that question, and I get that question often. And I'm gonna start off by asking a question. And so, not out here so much because I live in the high desert near the mountain, in the mountains and shit. But in the Midwest, home gardening is very popular. Do you know what the number one reason for failed home gardens is?
No idea.
People plant too many things.
Okay.
That's the number one reason that home gardening fails is people plant too many things. Okay? So now to answer your question, I'm going to tell you something that I do ask every one of my clients. What's the one thing that we can do now that's going to take the least amount of money and effort that's going to give us the quickest result? Once I identify that, we double down on that because I want to create momentum. When we start getting momentum, you start getting excited. And when you start getting excited, it starts creeping up the priority list. Okay? So the secret is momentum, but low-hanging fruit. Pick one thing. Don't pick 10 things. Don't even fucking pick 2 things. Pick one thing and dedicate to it. Make it easy. Make it simple. And it's always amazing to me the variety of answers that I get in coaching when I ask them that question. I had a guy, I asked him that, and he goes, sales, which means I don't know how to communicate with the client is basically what he's telling me, right? Sales. Okay. What's another one? Honestly, inventory. I'm like, oh, okay. Now we're looking at operations. Okay. He goes, inventory. All right, let's focus on inventory. Let's get really good at this one thing that's going to make you feel good about what you're doing, and then we can carry that momentum into the next thing. Once you start doing that, and I've got this thing that I call the 6 laws, but one of the 6 laws is time ownership. See, most everybody runs their business reactively. You have to understand that you've got to control. If you can get to controlling 80% of your day, you're a monster. Okay? and I have this term I call proactively reactive. Time block a part in your day to return phone calls, emails, and text messages. Stop doing that shit every time there's a ding, ring, or buzz. Your fucking dopamine addiction is ruining your business. Okay? And if you can't do that, then create a position or a system that can do that for you. Virtual assistants, right? Just have someone answer the phone while you're doing the shit. If your business is big enough, hire someone to answer the phone. I couldn't have got that $300,000 company to $300,001 if I didn't have an EFI. Because in the HVAC industry, it is a very reactive industry. So it's like, well, how do you build a proactive business in a reactive industry? People and systems, right? You've got to have those things in place. We know it's coming. So guess what? I'm going to prepare to be reactive.
It comes.
Yeah, I know it's coming. So you've got to identify what that low-hanging fruit is. Dude, some people, it has nothing to do with the fucking business. The best thing, the easiest thing that they can do is stop eating junk food and stop drinking every night. That right there will fucking elevate your company so fast. But you don't meal prep. There's no discipline. You run through the fucking fast food or the, eating cheesy burrito place next door, and you go home and you medicate yourself on whatever Netflix alcoholic drug-induced trip you're about to fucking take, because the relationship that you have with your business is so one-sided that you just do that day after day after day. Implement some personal discipline in your life and it'll fucking change your whole company.
Well, it's funny because the body follows the mind and the mind follows the body. And I've noticed that tremendously when I work out on a regular basis. Personally, a year ago, I was like I was not at a good spot. Like I was just, I wasn't working out. And I felt it. My body, I felt so old. I felt like the oldest 37-year-old I knew. Because, I had moved from physically doing things all the time into a sales and project management role.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not working out. When I would go out there, I would freaking hurt myself, So I got on to, I met with a dietitian and I committed to working out 2-3 days a week. I got a trainer. I've had a trainer for a year. Do I need a trainer? No, but he holds me accountable. I do the same thing, almost the same thing all the time. But you know what? Yep. He holds me freaking accountable. And I'm telling you, what helps me with going in the office, I have to schedule my office days after a workout or boxing, because I'm in the best headspace after I've got that adrenaline rush and the blood is going. And that's just my little hack to go out there and actually sit down and physically get things done that have to do with computers, because I can't focus otherwise. If I don't work out for two days, the third day, I'm like, I feel like garbage, and that has elevated my at least consciousness of where I want my business to go and the implementation of things. And, there's a dozen things I'm working on, I'm working on a dozen little things, just a little bit on each of them. And that's, back that up. That's part of my problem. But, just being mindful of what you eat and actually getting out there and physically moving. Like, in order to stop putting out garbage, you have to stop putting garbage in,
Changing your relationship with food and supplements is huge. And so, which means you have to change the internal narrative. Okay. And what I did, it was a very simple change, is I just started saying, okay, I eat for performance, not pleasure. Because I hate the term diet. And I'm a naturally thin guy, and people think skinny is in shape, and that's because they're also not in shape. Skinny is not in shape, okay? Skinny. So, I'm naturally a thin guy, but when I made that mind shift, it wasn't about, oh, I need to eat better. Oh, I need to, change my diet. I'm like, no, I need to eat for performance, not pleasure. So that became the internal narrative, right? So then you start looking and going, okay, is this performance or pleasure? Because, man, I'm going to be honest. I don't give a fuck about your pleasure and your comfort. I don't. You want somebody to hold your hand and hug you? Call your mom. I don't give a fuck about your feelings, your comfort, your pleasure. I care about your performance. Mm-hmm. You want to be successful? You want to do this? Good. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. You're going to piss people off, and that's okay. People hold themselves captive by this poor internal dialogue that they have been given and have developed, and it causes them to complain all the time. Performance. I eat for performance instead of pleasure. Does that mean that I don't eat for pleasure sometimes? No, I'm not a fucking robot. Yes, there are, especially with the holidays coming up, right? I mean, there's all kinds of good shit coming down the pipeline now, but 80-20, man. Eat good 80% of the time, 20% of the time, eat whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
For me, one of the biggest things that I stopped doing too was drinking every night. Not even drinking to get drunk, just having a drink. And, the first time that I went long enough where that metabolized out of my system entirely, it was ridiculous, the clarity that I had. And so now there are plenty of days that I get home, I'm like, oh, I just want bourbon on the rocks. I just want to enjoy it and just close out my day. But then that narrative that I've created starts to creep in. Okay, is that going to help your performance? Or is it for pleasure? And for me, what I ended up doing is I've created where I have mainly 2, 3, the third is an exception, but I only have 2 scenarios now where I drink. One is if I'm on a date with my girlfriend and we have a couple drinks. 2 is if I am not going anywhere and I want to sit down and I want to have a bourbon and a cigar. Because god damn, I love a good bourbon and a cigar.
Oh yeah.
Man, to me, that is my peace. I am at my greatest peace on earth when I am sitting outside in the nice weather with a bourbon and a cigar. Outside of that, it's very rare that I just indulge alcohol. Mm-hmm. But I've set those parameters for myself, right? I've allowed myself, I've given myself permission to go, yeah, you can do it like this. But performance over pleasure, And I've got this thing, Kevin, that, because I think everybody has their thing, right? When you look at Jocko and you look at Andy Frisella and you look at these just hard asses, right? I feel like they have a thing. And, Jocko has had so much influence on me, through the years. My thing is monster mentality. And this was before I heard Jordan Peterson talk about it. But for me, you have to be so aggressive and so assertive and so disciplined and so decisive about what you want and who you want to be that it scares people. Because people are scared of monsters. And when you embrace that monster mentality, it is bananas how many people get the fuck out of the way. Because people are scared of monsters. So that's my thing, but that's part of my internal dialogue, right? For me, that's part of my internal narrative. It's like, you've got to be a monster. You just have to go after this shit with a sense of aggression that doesn't seem normal. And man, you want to talk about being able to get shit done. You become so too focused. You can become too focused. And this was one of the things in my relationship, back to, the conversations that Katie and I have, is, I've given her full permission to tell me when I'm too deep, when I'm in too deep to the thing that I'm committed to, when I'm too focused, when I'm ignoring and the other things that I need to be paying attention to, her, for example, there's very few, if only one or two other people in the world that have that permission. Like, you come at me with your opinion, I don't give a fuck. And people think that's being an asshole, right? I think it's, I'm going to go off on this for a second, because people think that to go after the things that you want, you have to be kind and polite about it. It's like, fuck your feelings. I don't care about what your kids are doing. I don't care. I just don't care, right? I've got friends, very, very close friends, best friends that I have grown up with. I could not fucking tell you how old their kids are. I have no idea. I've been friends with two of these guys for 30 years. I have no idea how fucking old their kids are. I don't care, and they don't care that I don't care. But you have to understand that you can't be polite and care about other people's comfort if you're going to go after the thing that you want. Now, the dichotomy to that is you can't destroy people on your way. It's not about destroying people. It's not about belittling or degrading people. It's not about being maniacal or tyrannical towards other people. If people would focus on themselves and correcting themselves as much as they opinionate other people's behaviors, their life would be fucking great, right? But everybody wants to look through a microscope and not a mirror. And they want to focus on what everybody else is doing. I don't give a shit about your opinion. Just like you don't give a shit about my opinion. And that's fine. I could respect that, because if we are having a conversation, it's you and I have agreed on this conversation. And I'm not giving you unsolicited advice and vice versa, right? We are entering into this conversation. So, and that's why I think, back to just my whole concept, it's like, man, you've got to be a fucking monster about the things that you want. Mm-hmm. And just go after it with, again, this level of discipline and aggression that changes your fucking DNA. I mean, you've got to go after it that hot. And you can see him on camera, like my whole fucking head's red right now, because I'm getting fired up.
You finally got some color there.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
I can see you now.
Sweating under this fucking sweatshirt. But it's like, oh man, I get so frustrated with people on how much distraction and justification and excuses that they allow into their lives, and then they complain because they're not making more money, they don't have a successful business, their personal relationship sucks, their kids don't like them, like whatever the case is. It's like, dude, that's on you.
Yeah,
like that's you. Fix you. The bad shit will go away. You will attract the good shit in your life, and everything will start to evolve from there.
Absolutely, man.
Sorry. I fucking
nah.
Man, I just get so pissed, And if you were to follow me around for a day, I have the most boring life, that you could ask for. And I can't remember if we talked about this on the last podcast, but I did an interview recently, and this guy asked me, he said, do you ever feel like you're missing out? And I said, absolutely not. I don't fucking do anything I don't want to do. Mm-hmm. I don't, if I'm going to sit down on the couch and watch Netflix, it's because I absolutely choose to do that. I'm not trying to escape anything. And I've been there. I've done that. I've been in that hate my life on the drive to work, hate my boss on the way home from work, distract myself at home and neglect everything that's going on, not take care of my health, destroy my personal relationships. Like, I've lived that life. I've been prescribed Xanax for clinical depression. I've been hospitalized 3 times for dehydration just because of fucking working too much. Like, I fucking been there, man. And I'm not saying like my story is better than anybody else. All I'm saying is, we've all got a story. We've all got our scars. But why in God's name would I want to repeat that over and over and over again? If I'm spending time with you, it's because I 100% chose to.
Yeah.
That's it. You become so selfish with your time, and then you become disciplined with it. And that's why I said, like, my days, man, are so boring to most people. But it's crazy because those same people will go, dude, how the fuck do you get so much done? It's like, you're asking the wrong question. The question behind the question is, what is it that you're not doing? That's the question behind the question, right? And having these operating parameters, and I talked about giving yourself permission to fail. You also have to give yourself permission to succeed. You have to give yourself permission to be successful. And when people start companies or they get a promotion, like I did when I was talking about the TM job, they don't give themselves permission to be successful. Because the moment that success comes in, the old narrative comes in too and says, no, that's bad. Money's evil. You're going to lose your friends. Your family isn't going to like this, right? All of this background noise that's been the dialogue of your life up to this point. And then you start to negotiate. You start to bargain with success, and you start to hold yourself back. You have to give yourself permission to be successful.
So if people don't know your backstory about the HVAC business, you had a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
I've been curious to see what your thoughts are on partnerships after you've come out of that partnership, and with what you just said of being intentional about everything that you do in life because it's all on you. How does that influence your thought on partnerships, and what would you recommend to somebody who says, you know what, Josh is right, I need to be 100% intentional about everything that I do, but I have a partner or a partnership, my business or whatever, that's holding me back from that. What would you say to them?
If you're already in a partnership, it's going to be a very difficult conversation, okay? Because you're going to have to recreate your partnership. You're going to have to recreate your role. You're going to have to recreate what does success look like to you in the form of the business? Because what you're going to have to do is realign. Now, I've had conversations. So I've had people hire me to do pre-business partnership negotiations. Because I lost my business, I lost my team, and it was it was a tragedy. It was a fucking tragedy. February 28th, 2018 was the last day that I was in my HVAC company. And when I walked out that day, it was over. It was it. It was all gone. And the reason that the partnership had failed was because ego and greed had crept in. And man, the impact that it had on my team, my culture, it was tragic. It was a fucking tragedy. A testament to leadership, within 7 months of my departure, there was a 100% turnover in that company. And it was like 20% of the size. So I've been invited to have conversations, and I ask the most uncomfortable questions you've ever been asked in your life. And so if you're in a partnership, you've got to create realignment. And if there's no alignment, you have to create an exit strategy for somebody. And that's just how that conversation has to go. I had gotten to a point where this is an option. I just wanted my partner to stay home and collect a paycheck. Give me full control, collect a paycheck. You can fucking go and do whatever you want. And I'll build this son of a bitch massive success. And he wasn't willing to relinquish control. He didn't want any responsibility. He wanted all the control. So what I was talking about earlier, right? When you give someone responsibility and no authority, well, from the top down, when you don't want any responsibility and you only want control, it's very toxic. So, but, and I've had companies call me, or ideas of companies call me, 3 weeks later and go, hey, we've decided not to go in business together. Good. You guys, you're doing yourself a favor.
Yeah. Now, figure it out now.
Yeah. And because think of it this way. So let's talk about pre-business partnerships a little bit. It has to be the most ruthless prenup that you can possibly think of. I mean, it's going to feel like you are assassinating the person that you're talking about going into business with. And so for me, if you and I were in a conversation and we were talking about going into business together, we're going to go through the business stuff. We're going to go through vision planning, business planning, roles. But I'm going to tear this thing all the way down, Kevin. And I'm going to tell you, okay, here are some non-negotiables. Here are some breach of contracts for me. You're married, right, Kevin? You're married? Yep. You're a father. You're a husband. I'm going to tell you, if you step out on your wife, the second you do that, you forfeit me every share that you own. I just became sole owner of this company. That's how ruthless I'm going to get in a partnership negotiation. We're going to talk about your kids. And I may tell you, you know what? Your boy can never work in this company. That's up. We're going to get this shit out. We're going to get it on the table out of the gate.
Yeah. It's better to head it up now than,
than millions of dollars later.
Oh my, yeah. Because, it might be working now. It might work now. It might work for the first couple of years because you guys are all invested. But people change and people grow, and they don't always grow in the same direction as their business partner. And I've seen it. I've seen it so many times. And I only know one partnership that had that in business that actually is still together they've been together, like they've had the business 15, 20 years. But even then, I've talked to the one guy and he's, it's not even. He feels slighted on it. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things like, get the tough conversations out now before you do anything, before any money gets there, because it's going to come up. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you it's going to come up.
Yep. And you have to be, I'm going to use the term ruthless again. You have to be ruthless because you have to understand that when you make a decision to start a business, ultimately the livelihoods that you are going to affect is unknown. Mm-hmm. You may build a team of 50 techs and you're serving tens of thousands of clients. The moment that everything goes sideways, you're affecting all of those livelihoods. Everyone in your team, all of your clients, you're affecting all of them simply because you weren't willing to stop, put your excitement away, and have the hard conversations. And I learned that the hard way, Kevin. I didn't have the hard conversations. The reason my business failed was because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I made a decision to trust someone else to make decisions on my behalf. Me losing my business and everything that happened is entirely my fault because I didn't have the hard conversations up front. We didn't have clearly defined roles, and we began to misalign. And then the behaviors started to change. And then nepotism started to build in the company. And all of these different things that I just didn't understand was a potential problem. That's on me. I have no one else to blame for my ignorance. And not stupidity, ignorance. So I don't want someone else to experience that. So allow me to share my experience with you, and let's change your sense of ignorance, and let's just have a conversation. One of my favorite ones is when husband and wife work together. Ooh. You want to talk about some spicy conversations, my friend. That shit, somebody left the oven on at home. You know what I mean? Like, those conversations, what's amazing, because here's what I tell married couples. Your business's success solely depends on the quality of relationship that you have as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If you can't make it as husband and wife, your business is not going to be successful. But I also tell them, look, no pillow talk at work.
Sure.
Your name's fucking Kevin. You call me Kevin.
Yep.
I'm going to call you by your name. You take the work hat off and you go home. I don't give a shit what you call each other. None of my business.
Yeah.
But at work, we have boundaries and we have expectations, and you're not going to. I'm not going to treat you like my wife. I'm going to treat you like my business partner. And you're not going to treat me like you're not going to talk to me like I'm your husband. You're going to talk to me like a business partner. And people have such a difficult time. And it's not about creating two separate lives. It's just having clear boundaries of the life that you have. And if you don't lay that shit out, man, that home life will creep into work. And I'm not saying, the prenuptial conversations and that we're talking about is not about prevention. It's about mitigation, because life happens, right? But if you don't understand the consequence of emotional immaturity and leadership immaturity in your relationship in your business, you have no fucking business doing either. You don't need to be married, and you don't need to own a business. So having those conversations, so difficult, so valuable. And to be honest, I enjoy navigating difficult conversations. I'm going to turn this and go to another rabbit hole real quick, but you have to understand, as a leader, you have to understand what your gifts are. Meaning, where do you add the most value? And if you understand that as a leader, you need to get to where you can spend most of your time in that area. One of my gifts is operations. Mm-hmm. Nate made the joke earlier. I walked into their shop and started asking a bunch of questions. And I remember that conversation as if it happened yesterday. I could probably paint you a picture of what the shop looked like, right? There's piles of inventory on the floor, no wall space is utilized. They each had their own individual rock crawlers in there for personal projects, taking up space, I remember all of this disorganization and chaos, but it was all breathing, off of a dream. And, so my gift is operations, is being able to work with a business and look and immediately find, efficiencies and deficiencies, communication breakdowns, and so on. One of my other gifts is navigating hard conversations. That comes with a high level of emotional maturity and a lot of experience, unfortunately. But I enjoy it because I get to lead people down a path. And when they come out on the other side of that path, regardless of what decision they made, they're enlightened. They're better for it. Never have I had a conversation and be like, well, this is the stupidest fucking thing we ever did. Like, we're worse off for this now. Every time they're always better for it. Yeah. And, so I encourage people, invite someone in. I tell people, as a coach, my job is to bring you up at 30,000 feet and let's take a look at your business. Sometimes my job is to listen, but as a coach, My job is to let's look through the same lens together and invite someone in. Man, invite someone into your company that's got experience, that has a different perspective, that you can bounce ideas off of. I have brainstorming sessions all the time with my clients where my idea is the stupidest fucking idea on the board. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with, let's get the stupid ideas out of the way. Even if they're mine, let's get them out of the way. Brainstorm, have conversations, bounce ideas back and forth, share perspective. But it goes back to humility. Stop trying to do this on your own. Invite someone in. Stop thinking that, you're not a Rambo in business. This is not a one-man army. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to do this shit on your own, man. You'll become so much more successful, so much faster.
It goes back to the thing that I always say is pay people for what they're good at. You expect people to pay you as a professional to come in there and perform the job or the service because you are good at what you do. It's the same thing with accountants. Everybody, don't do your taxes. Mm-hmm. Have an accountant do your taxes. The money you spend on an accountant should not cost you money. It should save you money. In the end, a good accountant will more than pay for themselves. So if somebody, tell me what your coaching options are like for guys who want to get into who recognize the value and you know what, I can't do this alone. There is a lot of value to this. What are their options with you about moving forward for the first steps?
The first one is free, and it's the podcast.
Yeah.
We've got 230 episodes. A lot of what we're talking about today are referenced in topic-specific podcasts. I just recently I dove into one on partnership. It's all I talked about. So the first option is free. The second option is something that I've created called the Toolbox. The Toolbox is an online video library of informative videos. Okay, every video is less than 15 minutes long because I know my audience. Okay,
we ain't got no time for that.
I'm actually adding to by the end of the year, there's going to be at least 60 videos in the Toolbox. Videos range from interviewing. There's a video just on interviewing, on hiring, on onboarding, offboarding. There's a video dedicated to system development, system implementation. There's video, there's almost 60 videos in there. And you sign up, it's $19.95 a month, and you get unlimited access. And that's per company, not per person. I always try to tell people, I'm like, just sign up your business. You don't have to sign up for everyone in your company. They all have access to it, right? It's a low price point because I want people to have access to it. And that's why I say just buy one and share it with your whole team. Sure. I'm not going to show up and be like, says here, you've got 5 people on your team and 1 subscription. Oh my God. It just
not why you do this.
it costs me, dude, a 15-minute video is 3 hours to do.
Yeah.
Outlining, videoing, lighting, editing, uploading. So my time costs money. And, but I intentionally made it a low price point because I want people to have access. Mm-hmm. It's also a really good introduction to kind of the third option, which is the hourly coaching. Mm-hmm. When I started, Nate mentioned that I had met with him every week. I've learned over the last few years that is not effective for about 99% of the people because they need time to implement. Because when we get off of a coaching meeting, reality is waiting right outside the door. Yeah.
Those emails and texts have been building up.
Absolutely. And, 5 working days plus a weekend, there's no time to implement.
Mm-hmm.
So I work, so I don't do weekly packages anymore. I used to have a package monthly. I only coach people now on an hourly basis because it grants them flexibility. I don't contract people in to, well, we have to do this way. Mainly because I don't like that.
Sure.
I don't like that shit. I don't like feeling if I miss a meeting next Wednesday that I failed and that I'm losing money. So I do hourly coaching. It's $175 an hour. And I meet with people between every 2 weeks to every 5 weeks. I spend, to give kind of people an understanding of the ROI on this, I spend an average of, I use the word average, I'm going to say I spend an average of 3 hours a month with a client at $175 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Nate just told you earlier that they doubled revenue every year for 4 years in a row. They went from 250 to
Yep.
5 to $1 million to $2 million.
Do that math.
Do the math. The ROI is there.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
My favorite story, and I know I'm getting off topic here, but my favorite story is, he's a friend now, is my friend Garrett. When Garrett contacted me, it was early on in my coaching. I was charging, what was I charging? It was $800 a month. It was unlimited. We met every week for like 2 or 3 hours. It was crazy. Once I started doing the math, I was losing a lot of money.
Let me get in on that one.
Yeah. Oh my God. An unlimited
Your
package
morning
now.
phone calls.
Yeah. But I got an email from this guy, and he said, "Hey man, I've been listening to the podcast, and I couldn't afford the unlimited at the time. I couldn't afford $800 a month. I had just introduced the hourly coaching for $150 an hour. In the email, he says, I've saved up enough money to, and you and I have had this conversation, but I'm sharing it with the listeners. He said, I've saved up enough money to spend an hour with you. So we spend an hour. We find almost $3,000 in revenue over the next 6 days in his company. Off of 1 hour conversation, we laid out a strategic plan. We talked about different things. And so I get another email, and he said, hey, I've made an additional $3,000. I want to schedule another one. And by the way, this guy had made $25,000 in revenue. Total revenue for a year.
Top line.
Top line revenue was $25,000. He was getting ready to go back to work just to pay for his business. And he sent me another email. He said, I've saved up enough money. We meet again for an hour. This time we find $6,000 in revenue. And he goes, okay, fuck it, I'm in. And he bought the unlimited for $800 a month, which again is not available. I don't want anyone to think that's available anymore, because it is not available. And I worked with him for a year, and he took his business from $25,000 a year to $250,000 a year in 18 months.
Wow.
So that ROI,
yeah,
is there. So back to the coaching options. We've got a package that we're working on. I don't have a lot of information to share yet, but we're looking at building and integrating a hybrid of group coaching with built-in accountability calls and Q&A. So there will be some work that you can do on your own, and then there's going to be 1 or 2 meetings a month. But there's so much logistics to work out on that end right now. I'm not sure exactly when we're going to launch that. I'm hoping by first or second quarter. And the last option is my big ticket option, is a 3-day on-site. I fly out Monday. I spend Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in your company, and I leave on Friday. That's $5,000 plus expenses. And you want to talk about drinking from a fire hose,
Oh man, you're physically there.
When I'm physically there,
and you can point out every little detail and the way he looks at you and the way you got a problem with that, you got to fire him.
Yeah. and they're not 8-hour days.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to say this, egotistically, your ass is mine for 3 days.
It's a boot camp.
It's a fucking boot camp. Yep. It's a boot camp. And we are going to deconstruct and reconstruct your business. We're going to do leadership training. We're going to do team building exercises. We're going to dive into operations. We're going to do sales training. I mean, you're getting full benefit. When I leave on Friday, you're going to walk bow-legged and you're going to brag about it. But so when you look at the wide-ranging options that I've built, it's because when I got into this and I hired coaches and I started going to conferences, I was frustrated. Man, I was so frustrated because I couldn't buy the $10,000 rung of the ladder, And I'm not saying there's anything wrong, right? To spend 12 hours with Tony Robbins, it's $1 million. Okay? To spend 2 hours for Tom Reber to come in, Tom Reber's a beast, to come in 2 days, I think it starts at $10,000. I love that. I will be there. I'll be there. I'm going to have a team of coaches, but what I always got frustrated with, especially in the trades, is the rung on the ladder was so far out of reach for guys like me who couldn't afford it. I'm just like, how in the fuck do you save up $10,000 to fly away for a week? Once you get to a point where you can afford it, it's fucking worth it, because you're talking about multi-million-dollar revenue companies.
Yeah.
But man, I've had this thing in my heart where I got tired of everyone skipping over the little guy, skipping over guys like me. I felt like I always got fucking left behind in the business world because, first of all, the availability to this information that's designed specifically for the trades. I will tell you, no one does leadership training in the trades like I do. If you want to talk about profits and sales, I don't hold a candle to Tom Reber. Tom Reber is a fucking beast. I know Tom personally. I've had him on the podcast twice. I could call him right now, right? He's a good dude. No one does leadership and operations better than we do, period. But I want to make it accessible.
Yeah.
Because, again, I will get to a point where I'm $10,000 a day because I know the value that I'll bring is worth it.
Sure.
But I'll have a team of coaches that you can start with. I will not eliminate the accessibility for the single owner operator guy that's driving to his job site with his earbuds in because his 1989 Chevy truck, the radio doesn't work. But God damn it, he wants to be successful. And I get frustrated when these companies not only ignore, but leave that guy behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's not where we're building here. That's why the toolbox is less than $20 a month. All the information is in there. You want to work on a one-on-one level? It's $175. I will make you 10 times that in a month, or we'll 10x your whole business in a year. So the toolbox, the hourly coaching, and the on-site are right now, those are the three options available that we can work together.
I love it, man. I think everybody can benefit from anything you've got to offer, whether it's, just starting out. Because I feel like there's so little places to go to get, well, like you said, the trade specific. I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I can't really think of any that apply to the business side of the trade industry. Mm-hmm. It's high level stuff, and I feel like when I listen to things, they're talking to people who are 10 steps ahead of me. It's like your team, do this with your team. I'm like, yo, my team's like 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think you understand. My team isn't 150 people, and I feel I always felt a little bit left behind, but I could still take like the good parts of it and tweak it and apply it to my business where I could. But I love that you're just trade specific, and what your tradesman, you're blue collar specific, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trade specific. You're everything you do applies. We joke that you're a welding podcast because you got Nate on there and you got me on there, but you're not a welding podcast.
That's right.
What you teach applies to all businesses and all trades. And frankly, man, I just thank you for that. That's really awesome what you're doing. How can people reach out and connect with you?
Instagram is my biggest platform. That's the one I use the most. I'm at the Tradesman Experience, and the website is the same, thetradesmanexperience.com, and the email is thetradesmanexperience@gmail.com.
Very cool, man.
So, man, there's something that I want to tell you. I mean, you came onto my podcast. It was a great conversation. We had time constraints, but I think it teed us up for us getting to come on your show. And podcasting, listening to podcasts changed my life, all for the better. So when I get to sit down and do this thing that I fucking love with another person, a guy like yourself, that brings the same level of enthusiasm and passion, I'm the one that's thankful. Because to put yourself out on display like this, and to put your own bullshit out in the air for the person listening, whether they're in a welding hood or driving to a job site, riding in their service van, for them to be in that moment and have the free opportunity to judge you as prejudice or without prejudice as they want. See, you and I make a decision to put ourselves in that situation. Mm-hmm. And so when I see guys like you we are working together to pave a road that doesn't exist in the trades.
Yep.
We are the ones laying the pavement.
Yeah.
And I can only hope that other people will do the same, that other people will follow on this path. So I'm grateful for you, for getting to meet you. I think you're one hell of a dude, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me, giving Nate. I'm going to speak on behalf of Nate, to come on here and you introducing us to your audience. I'll close with this. I hope that we were able to add value to someone today.
I promise you have, because with a number of guys who reach out and say, thank you for talking to this person because I got this. And, I don't talk about this much, but there are people who have reached out to me, and it puts me in check, because I started this almost selfishly because I wanted to talk to other people and extract value out of them, because I like to talk shop and I like business. And being able to record this and just like, the only thing I do is hit record and upload. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's minimal editing to this. But people have reached out and said, listening to your podcast has encouraged me to finally make the leap to go and start my business. Is man, it's humbling. Mm-hmm. Because I never thought this would get to this level. And realizing that this has become more than just like a hobby of me sitting down and shooting the shit with my friends, I feel encouraged. And that's why I love listening to what you have to say to other people, and just putting out what you have, is because I realized, like, wow, like we're actually changing people's lives, even though I had zero intention. I just wanted to sit down and talk to my friends. I had zero intention on doing any of that, but I feel like it's grown to so much more than I've ever thought it would ever get to. And I see what you guys do, and I'm just super, super thankful for what you guys put out there.
When I started this podcast, I had this false ambition that everyone was going to be as interested and excited about leadership as I was. And it did not take very long for me to recognize that was not true. And what I had to understand was, everything that we've discussed in this conversation, there's a tremendous need. We have to cultivate the want. Because I've learned that the concept of leadership, true leadership in the skilled trades, is so unorthodox, people are afraid of it. And if they get over that fact and realize that in today, see, when my grandpa was in the coal mines operating equipment, your ability to operate the equipment determined your level of success. It was very singular. Leadership is the key to success today. It's not the product, it's not the service, it's not even the quality. Leadership is the key to business success today. And when the trades make a decision to embrace that, it'll fucking change everything.
Well, I think that's a great place to put a pin in it, man. I appreciate you so, like, everything that you do, man. Thank you.
Well, the appreciation is mutual.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, go out there and what's your tagline? Go out there and get shit done.
Yeah. Thanks for spending this time with us. Get out there, get shit done. Be proud to be a tradesman. See ya.